Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcasting time's here.
It's a good Australian. You're getting better.
Thank you.
It's sort of subtler.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you podcast.
That line was written for this movie, right?
It was.
That was the first time that Max...
Did this movie invent Two Men Enter, One Man Leaves? Like, is this the movie that came up with that?
I think so. And this movie also invented fighting.
Yeah, right.
People had never come to blows before Thunderdome.
And then after this, everybody got a Thunderdome.
I know.
It became the hottest backyard accessory.
Can I just start out right off the gate? The audacity of this movie, the confidence. If this had been titled Mad Max: Thunderdome, you'd go, oh my God, fucking cool title.
I can't wait to see what a Thunderdome is.
Right, but this movie goes, no, we're beyond Thunderdome.
We don't even know what Thunderdome is yet, but we don't need it.
You
We're gonna
dumb
introduce it and
idiot.
move past.
We're beyond Thunderdome
They're
at this
first
point.
telling you they're beyond. You go, beyond what? Thunderdome. I didn't even know that Thunderdome existed
This is a
until
good
you
point.
just told
Why
me
do they call it that?
that you were beyond it.
Well, because the first half is Thunderdome, the second half goes beyond Thunderdome.
You go beyond
And what
I
wanna see-
understand.
And what I want to see is a pie chart that shows all of the movies, the percentage of movies that take place on this side of Thunderdome versus the films
It's like-
that are beyond Thunderdome.
Right.
They're not many.
It's
I
like
can think of one.
My favorite joke of all time. What they teach you at Harvard Business School, what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. Like when you buy those two books, you're like, that's it. That's all the knowledge.
This movie's beyond Thunderdome, and also I think Mystery Alaska is beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, that movie does
Those
have
are
a
the only
Thunderdome
two.
sequence.
Yeah.
J.
It
Roach
also,
miniseries.
God, it also has the Rangers tying a fucking local Alaskan hockey team. It makes me so bitter. I cannot stand it. Anyway,
Here's a question. Is Mystery Alaska J. Roach's second best film? Third?
It sort of depends on where you fall on the Austin Powerses, I feel like.
His best movie is Austin Powers 1, no question.
It's no question. It's also one of the great debuts.
Yes. A really promising debut.
And then after that, it's sort of like, what do you want? You want a Power sequel? Do you want one of the Fockers movies?
Right.
He did what? Two?
He did
Three?
two. He did two.
Are you weirdly into Dinner for Schmucks?
I always confuse him with Tom Shadyac.
That's fair, but Tom
Yeah.
Shadyak's weirder than
Yeah,
That's
he's
the
got the
difference.
hair.
Well, and
then-
Roach is like, I'm very political and I'm very serious.
Right. He's like, yes, we have to talk about Trumbo.
Yes.
And
Let's
which
talk
one
about
of them
Trumbo on
did?
every episode of Blank Check.
Shadyac.
Which one of them did Bombshell?
Roach.
Right.
Roach.
'Cause that's-
Shadyac this year did Brian Banks, the movie about the football player who was accused
Deleted
of
a lot of
rape
emails
or
about that movie.
something? Yeah.
But here's the key distinction is that Roach does the recount movie.
Yes, that's right. He becomes the HBO electoral
Right.
recreation movie
Have you ever
guy.
wanted to watch a Wikipedia page
Right.
starring a lot of famous people? Here you
Because
go.
Curtis Hanson, I think, is supposed to direct that, gets sick, drops out, Roach jumps
Because
in.
Curtis Hanson had done Too Big to Fail,
Right.
which is much better than Recount.
Agreed. He's a better director. He
Yeah,
was
true.
a far
He
better
was far
director.
better.
Then Jay Roach?
Yes.
How dare.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Knives out. We're going beyond Thunderdome in this episode. I'm ready to fight.
Two directors enter,
Steelbook
one
talk.
director
We gotta
leaves.
do it.
Okay, we'll get to Steelbook talk in 1
You said
second.
Knives Out.
But Roach jumps into that movie last second,
Yeah.
does just the most gentleman's straightforward job, just directing the script with a good cast.
I watched that movie while I was like folding my laundry,
Right.
and it was okay.
That movie's watchable, right? And then he like wins an Emmy, and he's like, legitimacy. And then he just becomes all about like, I need to be taken seriously. Except he also does Dinner for Schmucks in The Campaign.
He does. Here's his last 10 years or whatever. Since
took
08.
Dinner for Schmucks
Recount
seriously.
Schmucks. Game Change. The Campaign.
Yeah.
The
That's
comedy.
him trying to split
you
the
know.
atom and go, can I do both?
Trumbo. And then, of course, that's
I'm
when-
writing in my bathtub.
That's right. That's when he won the Golden Bathtub. And then All the Way, another HBO political
Right.
movie.
Right. Another
based on
Cranston.
a play, yes.
Yes.
And then, of course, Bombshell. The biggest bombshell of 2019. We all remember it.
Now, Shadyac, it's the opposite, because both Roach
Shadyac
and
just
Shadyac
went
start out
he-
doing very broad, very silly, right? And then have their, like, come to Valhalla moment, right? For Roach, it's, oh my God, I won an Emmy. I'm a very serious politician now.
And for Shadyac, it's like reading The Secret.
Shadyac gets into a bicycle accident
in a bike
and
accident.
has a brain injury,
Yes.
and then gives away
He
all
has
of
like
his personal
tinnitus.
belongings.
He has like a ringing in his ears problem, I think.
Right, but he's like, all of this is meaningless. Hollywood is a game that I don't want to play anymore. He gives away all of his belongings. I think he lives in like an Airstream trailer. And then he makes a movie called I Am.
I Am.
And then Hollywood keeps on trying to offer
No,
him.
excuse me. According to Wikipedia, this film asks the question, what is wrong with the world and what can I do about it?
It's a good question.
Hey,
a
running
good question.
time, 76 minutes. So clearly that movie
good running
solves the problem fast.
That's all you need.
But there was, I think, a New Yorker piece on him where they talked about that he was still getting like $10 million offers to direct big studio comedies. And they'd be like, Shadyac, we need you to direct The Incredible Mr. Limpet. And he'd be like, the only way I'll do it is I can rewrite the entire script to make it about fracking.
Here is Shadyac.
Because he does Evan Almighty, which is the
yes.
first green production, which is why it's also the most expensive comedy ever made.
Here is Shadyac's run.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Cute.
Masterpiece, 10 out of 10.
Which you ask him about it, he goes, Ace is just about love. It's about pure love.
I can see it.
He does get a blowjob like 5 minutes into that movie.
From what, the Capuchin monkey?
No, from a fucking woman. That movie is insane.
It's a loving blowjob, though.
Yeah. Number 2, Nutty Professor. Huge hit.
Humongous.
And people forget, like, Eddie Murphy, like, swept the Critics Awards for Best Actor. Like, that movie was everywhere.
And it was coming off of like 7 straight years of Eddie flops.
Now, number
Massive
3,
comeback for
and
Eddie.
here I'm going to read Fran Hoffner's review, her letterboxd review of this film, which I have memorized.
Okay.
The film is called Liar, Liar, and her review, he can't lie.
Sure.
Which is a movie I've seen like 40 times, and it is pretty bad.
Massive success.
Excuse me. No more Tierney slander on this
Maura
podcast
Tierney's great.
while I'm here.
She does have a pretty, it's a junkie role.
Currently in like season 3 of her not making out with Dr. John Carter on ER.
Oh, boy.
gotta happen one of these
that takes a
days.
while. No spoilers, but they do. All right, then Patch Adams, which I guess is sort of his like Michael Bay doing Pearl Harbor, where it's
Yes.
like, can I blend what I'm known for with like Oscar bait?
Or it's like Michael Brest doing Sense of a Woman.
Martin Brest,
It's,
yes,
I'm
right.
sorry, Jesus Christ. Michael Brest and Martin Bay.
They got combined at a Transformers.
Yes. Yes. Which is critically reviled, but is a enormous success.
Yeah, but can we come up with a phrase for that, which I've just discovered, where it's like the director's like, I'm going to do my thing plus Oscar bait.
It's
'Cause
Green
that's the
Book.
thing about Pearl Harbor. It's not him
Yeah.
making Green Book, though.
No, but Green Book I think is the same thing. Green Book is so comedy-ish. It's so
I know it
fairly- but
is.
there's
I
so-
know. I guess that's the more quote-unquote successful version of it. I know.
Right.
It's sort of like looking for Valhalla idea,
Yeah.
like looking for legitimacy. But yeah, I don't
What
know.
is
Then-
the term? Yeah.
Well, we can
come
think
back
about it. And we
to-
can
okay.
crowdsource it.
Yeah.
Around. Then Dragonfly. Don't forget Dragonfly.
Right. Now that's him just going totally off the reserve.
That's the Costner near-death experience
I definitely
movie.
felt a boob during Dragonfly.
humble.
Oh, not even that humble. I think it was a good one. I am recently. I think the most recent episode of the show that aired at the time we're recording this was the Rachel getting married episode, in which boob feeling was discussed. I believe
I
it was
forgot about that.
the speakers, and so I'm just picking up the torch where I found it.
Sure.
But very true.
Sure.
Then Bruce Almighty, colossal hit. People
Humongous.
forget.
And in both cases, Liar Liar was coming after.
Yeah, they were both like Carrie
Truman
Rebound
Show.
movies. Yeah. No, Liar Liar's before Truman Show. It's after Cable Guy.
Oh, right.
They're both like Carrie just being like, let me give you a comedy. I'm
Right.
going to make some faces. I'm going to do some
Right. And
voices. And people are like, thank you.
Bruce Almighty is post Truman Show, Man on the Moon.
But it's also like
and
post.
Majestic.
Isn't it post number 23 or is it
No, pre.
Okay.
It was the 3 dramedies, and then he comes back and does a straight down the middle,
Just funny.
and it opens to $70
I remember
million.
that opening. Griffin, I remember that opening till the day I die. I'll
Right?
remember that opening.
I think 240 domestic.
It was huge. And then Evan
Insane.
Almighty.
We'll never
then
see it.
Evan
God.
Almighty,
Right.
which is that's the blank check. If
No.
we did Shadyac,
Right. Now, Evan Almighty he was like, look, if I'm making this movie, it's going to have a serious environmental message.
Right.
The film is half PSA, sort of in like tone. And it costs $180 million.
it was quite pricey.
Well,
the
Lauren
most expensive-
Graham was commanding a hefty fee at the time. Gilmore Girls was at the height of its popularity.
I mean, they always say the 3 things you don't do are shoot on water.
Water.
Animals.
Don't build arcs. Don't have
Cast Lauren
animals.
Graham
Children.
as Steve Carell's wife.
Right. But the other thing is that was the first movie where Shadyac was like, we're going to be the first studio movie to be carbon neutral.
Right.
And there were not the mechanisms in place to know how to
well,
do
hey,
that.
look, it's pioneering stuff. Then.
Agreed.
Good for him.
I feel like that movie feels like it's always a hair away from just becoming like a Christian family values film.
Correct.
And is fighting that impulse
It's
the
so
entire
weird.
time.
It's such a weird
Then he
movie.
did I Am, and then last year he had Brian Banks, which just like I just remember like getting these emails. It's like he was a football player who's accused of rape, and he was wrongly accused, and I was like, is this like a movie we need to have right now?
Yeah.
And I never saw it. It actually made $4.4 million. So
Morgan Freeman all
a
over
lot
the
of accused
trailer.
rapists out there were finally a movie for us.
Morgan Freeman's in it, uncredited.
But all over the trailer.
Well.
It feels like they use all 30 seconds of his performance in the trailer.
I do love Aldous Hodge. I feel like anytime that
He
guy's in a movie,
rules.
I'm in safe hands.
It's great in Clemency.
Great in Clemency.
Great in What Men Want. We talked about that.
Great in What Men
He's
Want.
so fucking charming.
Great in that Kevin Bacon show I have definitely never seen a single frame of.
Oh,
but I'm
City
just,
on
I'm
a
just
Hill.
assuming,
It's
yeah.
supposed to be great in that. And look, let me say, this is a podcast about three things. Aldous Hodge, Jay Roach, and Tom Shadia.
Yeah.
It's called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm Dave.
And we psyched you out. It's not about that. It's about filmographies. Although we did just speed round two filmographies in totality.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Shadyak, I guess we podcast Almighty. Would that be what we do?
Well, if
It's
we
tempting.
do, because we thought March Madness 2020 was going to be the vulgar bracket, and then it ended up being the
But he could be on a
hardware
vulgar
bracket.
bracket.
He could be on a vulgar bracket.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It'd be fun to do.
Yeah.
And Roach would be on our woke bracket. Because Roach actually makes you think. He makes you laugh,
if
but
we
he
do
makes
a
you
woke
think.
bracket, I resign from the podcast.
Roach makes you think.
He does make you think. He makes you think, can I like nap during this movie and not miss anything? That's how I felt during
No, remember that
Bombshell.
very woke scene in Bombshell where he makes you think about the ugliness of men leering at women in a workplace by keeping his
Leering at a
camera.
woman at the workplace?
Yeah,
Yep.
on Margot Robbie's panties for fucking
I'm
15
aware.
minutes.
It's not a good scene.
That is a long time.
Long time.
It's just one
15
unbroken shot.
straight minutes. It's
Wow.
like going through other scenes that she's not in, and you're still hearing that audio, and the camera's focused solely on her panties. What a gross movie. I'm glad it won Best Picture.
Happily did not win Best Picture.
Although it's tragically, it did totally deserve the Oscar. It did win.
Makeup?
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, that guy's a fucking
Yeah,
genius.
He's a genius.
remarkable.
And yeah. Even though, honestly, I will say, I mean, the Megyn Kelly job,
Yeah.
incredible. The Lithgow is Roger Ailes' job. That more just felt like he was like, I don't know, I have this. he like got the Churchill suit. He's like, I put this
you paint your
on.
masterpiece, you frame it, it doesn't really matter. You know?
Right.
Yeah, you know what did win Best Picture? Parasite.
Ooh.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, you know what's cool about that? That's cool.
It's so crazy.
It's very cool.
Can I tell you guys that I just interviewed Bong Joon-ho? You guys know.
Oh shit!
On the phone.
How'd
on
that
the
go?
Skyped him.
That's
It
so
was
cool.
lovely.
What'd you guys talk about?
Kelly Reichardt, because he was basically interviewing her while I watched. That's what was happening. Did I not tell you I was doing this, Ehrlich?
What?
But this posted months
You were
ago.
witness to an interview.
I basically like interviewed Bong Joon-ho and Kelly Reichardt together about First Cow.
It was an episode
because
of Iconoclast.
he loves Kelly Reichardt.
Okay.
But really, it was just like me watching them talk and just sort of like doing.
That sounds wonderful.
It was truly wonderful. It took him 25 minutes to figure out how to do Skype.
Okay.
But that's okay.
I have so many questions about how that came to be, but,
I concocted it with a press person.
great.
You know, I know how much he loves Kelly.
visionary of you.
Yep.
That's,
But
wonderful.
it was just so cool. Like we were just waiting. So it was like Sharon in picture, his translator, and
The
Kelly,
great Sharon Choi.
the great Sharon Choi. And we're just kind of like, and Sharon's just getting texts from him being like, he's trying something else. Like it was just like a Skype thing. And then suddenly he pops into frame wearing a big red sweater and just a wall of DVDs behind him. And he was like, I'm in my house. And I was like,
He may be currently the greatest living human.
he's very cool.
He's
tough to-
and
tough
quite
to top.
lovely.
He's at
What
human
a nice
Paddington
guy.
level right
He
now.
really does. He does have a bit of a Paddington energy. Yes.
What a sweet man.
Chaotic Paddington.
Sure. Right.
David, did you ask him the burning question?
Here's the thing.
Question about the movie Burning.
He loved, he specifically in his first question shouted out Night Moves.
And did you ask him what his favorite performance in the final scene of Night Moves
did
that
not.
isn't Jesse Eisenberg?
Because they were already talking about aspect ratios or whatever, so they were off to the races. But he specifically said Old Joy and Night Moves were the two, because apparently he like rushed her on the Cannes stage.
There's just
when he
something I
won.
love about Night Moves I can't put my finger on.
We're talking
it's
like
a
a Bob
key in
Seger
my
song?
shoe.
It's named after the Bob Seger song, I
Okay.
believe. It's a movie that Griffin was in,
Oh,
directed by Kelly Reichardt.
Watched by Bong Joon-ho.
Watched and enjoyed
Hey.
by Bong Joon-ho.
I'm going to
That's
start
awesome.
listing that as a credit.
Yeah, I have been enjoyed by Bong Joon-ho.
I can't say enjoyed, but certainly watched by him. Is it Blank Check? I gave the introduction, but
You
here's
did.
the thing. This is a miniseries clearly, as if you couldn't already tell, on the films of George Miller. It's called Mad Pod Fury Cast.
We love it.
Wow.
And this is the third film in the Mad Max trilogy, record scratch quadrilogy.
It's also the third film in his career.
Yes. It's pretty crazy that he just came out of the gate and was just like 1, 2, 3, moving on. And then surprisingly came back to Mad Max when it felt like that was never going to happen.
It took him 30 years later.
Yeah. Pretty nuts. But this film today is called Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Let's get past the Thunderdome.
I would happily stay in the Thunderdome for the whole movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm going to read Roger Ebert's quote on the Thunderdome in a moment because I love it. But joining us from IndieWire, from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, from Howl's Moving Castle, from Le Village.
Are there any?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's
The Doctor Strange episode? Which Patreon episode? No,
of the
Guardians
Galaxy
2.
Vol.
Guardians
2,
2, that's it.
baby.
But I'm counting. I guess there was 1 and 2, 3. This would be the 5th time.
Oh, they all acquaintance be forgot. Isn't that the five-timer
Ben
song?
is digging up the 5-timers jacket from the carpet.
Artisanally buried underneath the audio boom carpet.
Naturally distressed.
I've heard of people in the Winter Olympics wearing roots, but I've never heard of 5-timers on blank check wearing a jacket with roots in it from the ground because it was buried.
I've heard of LeVar Burton being in Roots.
Well, that's one way. That's a pathway. That is a pathway.
Well, so I'll just say,
Sure.
right, that I dug up the jeans.
It's true.
By this point-
this is
Bombshell.
posting in like mid-April.
Right.
So the news is
so
out.
it's already been revealed at
Right.
the live event.
Right.
I
You-
dug up the jeans.
You've dug them up. You
Yeah.
have revealed them for the first time on stage at our live shows
Yes.
at the Bell House.
But
in New
that
York.
actually hasn't happened yet to us. It's
We
happened
don't
to
know what the
to
results are,
listeners.
but
They're fresh out of the
No,
ground.
we know what the result. Did you not look at the pictures?
I know I did.
Oh,
Can we
okay.
talk about the immediate result? You buried 3 pairs of jeans. How many pairs of jeans came up?
2.
Yep.
I would say 2.2.
The earth swallowed the other bear's
One of them
tribute.
is more of just
Completely disintegrated.
it's just sort of a shape, a fabric shape.
Lost
at
to the
this
creative
point.
process.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
It's like it would be like the really, really short shorts.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then just the middle part of the pants just kind of hanging down like a tail.
Right. It would be sort of a string jean kini.
It would fit into the vibe of this movie.
Sure.
Costume wise.
It did
For
look
sure.
a little Thunderdome.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Rachel, you wanna say
that
off
pair
on them?
died so the other 2 could live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Sure.
Guys, it really worked.
No, I'm very
the
proud of
ground
you.
distressed the jeans naturally.
3 jeans enter the ground.
2 came out.
2 jeans leave.
I would love nothing more than if in Mad Max Furiosa, I would assume inevitable fifth
Sure.
film in this trilogy in this quintilogy,
Uh-huh.
that George Miller had a scene where the people in the wasteland dig into the dunes and bring up a pair of distressed jeans that have been buried there since before the nuclear apocalypse and look better than ever.
Yeah. Or
Dare I
what about
say.
if it's like a worm tribe?
Oh boy. Someone in the opening credits of this film is credited as visual consultant, I think.
Sure.
And God, if the 5th Mad Max movie happens, how do we get Ben in that job?
I want it so bad. Like salt
I think they're gonna
jeans
film in
are
New
my
Jersey
next thing.
for the
Like
next
this is
one.
my wheelhouse.
Well, it's like Namibia, like with Fury Road. He has to hope that it doesn't rain in Jersey for the next 3 years, and then he can film there.
Yeah. So, Mac, you.
Oh yeah,
Ben,
actually,
are you
speaking of
Dr. Dealgood? Are
this
you
movie-
Blackfinger? Are you
Screw Loose?
Yeah, I'm just looking at names from Thunderdome right now.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of weird that this movie filmed me and my friends hanging out when I had no
It
recollection.
filmed you and your friends as kids,
Yeah.
and then it also filmed you as your friends as adults, and then it flipped the order.
It's weird. It's like I have
It's
no
Boyhood,
memory.
but with Ben Hosley, essentially.
People think of this film as being a third Mad Max film,
Yeah.
right? It's the second Mad Max sequel. When in reality, the way it should be viewed is George Miller's Gus Van Sant Psycho-esque take doing a shot-for-shot remake of Ben Hosley's home videos.
yeah, yeah.
It's shot for shot. I mean, it's
shot
crazy.
for shot. Yep. That was me at
Just
summer
thinking about
camp.
Worm tribe.
Pretty
This
much.
is you at summer.
Your summer camp was in a crash 747.
Yeah, in the desert.
Waiting for the captain to show up.
That's the Jersey governor just has a bazooka. He shoots down airplanes. He's like, "There's a summer camp over there if you can find it."
What if Sully were the captain, though? What if they're just waiting for Sully?
Oh man, that's a good point. Right? So yeah, because their god is a captain in Thunderdome.
A quick
Sully
question
would be the
before-
greatest of all gods.
Before we can move on with this episode, how many souls were on board?
155. He did eyeball it too.
I do feel, just
They're not
based
gonna
on the
make
evidence
Teterboro.
we've
They're not going to
seen,
make Teterboro.
that 150 souls did not come out of that plane that day. That some souls were lost along the way.
You think souls were lost?
I think
You think even though like their human bodies endured, their souls were lost in a geese strike?
Like, do you think like innocents died for a few of those
They-
passengers?
they hit a gyrocopter and it went down. And I do think a couple of people.
Oh,
may
you're
not
talking
have
about the Thunderdome plane.
I
I
am.
thought you were a Sully truther.
Yeah, I was supposed to.
No, I'm a Sully the movie truther, where my truth is that it's not especially good.
God.
But no, I am talking
that
about
is
the,
you're canceled.
I
Number
think
one.
in every
you can never run for
episode-
president. This will get brought up if you ever try.
1000%.
This audio will leak Shane Gillis style.
Listen, I'm just here trying to push
Yeah,
boundaries.
you're pushing boundaries. And let me tell you, buddy, you missed. Okay.
Hey, David,
Yeah,
call me crazy.
you're crazy.
But no, hold on. I wasn't saying call me crazy. I was saying, obviously, that's the start of call me crazy, but it's a conditional. I'm saying you have the
Said but.
invitation to call me crazy if you disagree with what I'm about to say.
Okay, go ahead.
You're about to get hoisted by your own petard because you were so quick to call me crazy and you're going to agree so hard. David,
Yes.
call me crazy, but I'm not crazy about crowds these days.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit of anxiety from the crowds. You're right. I've been
Oh,
hoisted.
Oh, so you're saying
You're not crazy.
I'm not crazy. I'm crazy like a fox.
Yeah, sure. You're crazy like a fox in that you want to avoid a crowd, like all foxes.
Foxes hate crowds, especially the 20th century ones. You know what? In fact, I'm gonna even reset this. David, call me brilliant,
Okay, brilliant.
but I'm not crazy about crowds these days.
But what if you need to go to the post office?
Well, this
What
is
if
the
you
problem.
need to send out letters and packages? And I have encountered this
Yes.
since the dawn of the coronavirus, and I have encountered this with family members who need to send some mail and don't want to go to the post office right now because it's an enclosed space.
It's that census time of year. Even though we all got little extensions, people working on their taxes. I know I have stuff I have to send off. And it's a little scary to go to the post office right now. It kind of feels like ground zero, for infection these days.
Well, Stamps.com is here to help because anything you can do at the post office, you can do at Stamps.com. You can print postage on demand and skip those lines and crowds at the post office. Plus, you can actually save some money with discounts you can't even get at the post office.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. They're bringing all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your computer in the safety and comfort of your own home, office, or anywhere else you're hunkering down right now. I like to imagine where other types of places people could be hunkering down right now that they don't consider a home nor an office.
The sewers, if you're a subway person.
But sure, but don't you think those people, no disrespect to those people, would consider that a home? Don't you think
guess
the
so.
Ninja Turtles would if you said to
You're
them...
right. You're right. Your home is where you lay your hat.
Right, they would say that's our home and our office. It's our home office.
Well, fair enough. But maybe, I don't know. Some people
That's
are just
irrelevant.
wandering the earth. Yes.
David, the point is, whether you're a small business sending invoices, an online seller shipping out products like the people that I am buying Orco merchandise from off of eBay on a daily basis, or you're just working from home and need to mail stuff, Stamps.com can handle it all with ease.
Right. You just use your computer. You can print official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any kind of mail, anywhere you want to send. Once it's ready, you just leave it for your mail carrier, schedule a free package pickup, or drop it in a mailbox. There's no human contact required. It's that simple.
And if there's anything that's unpopular these days, it's human contact.
With Stamps.com, you get great discounts too. 5 cents off every first-class stamp and up to 40% off USPS shipping rates.
You beat me
Okay.
to it, David. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's crazy. You just said verbatim what I was about to say. It's like there's some really fascinating parallel thinking going on here. The point is, Stamps.com is a no-brainer, especially now, saving you time and money, keeping you safe in these crazy times. And I'll say this, in these crazy times, nice time to send people a letter. You know what I'm saying? Send people a little
correspondence.
package.
Never hurt anyone.
And I think the only thing scaring people off of that is having to go to the post office, having to wander the streets. Well, we're cutting out those elements.
They also offer UPS services with discount rates up to 62%. You don't have to pay the residential surcharges. It's a no-brainer. So,
It's a
listen,
no-brainer.
right now, our listeners can get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a digital scale without any long-term commitment. You just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in check. That's Stamps.com, enter check.
One could even say that Stamps.com is like Frankenstein's monster during the first act of that story.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a no-brainer.
But with Pete Davidson potentially stepping down, maybe
Yeah.
there's room for Shane Gillis to come right up.
I don't mean this backhandedly. I genuinely love Pete Davidson knowing that he is under a 7-year contract.
Right.
And just being like, yeah, I don't really like being on the show. I wish they would fire me.
Yeah.
It's the last king of Staten Island.
He is.
He is.
He's the last.
Yeah, he is basically begging to be fired, but also
No,
they
wait, no,
seem
he's
to
just
only
the-
employ him just because they're worried about him. Like, it's
Yeah.
a weird dynamic in general.
But also, then what they have him on to do is essentially make fun of his
True, to
public
make fun of himself or
persona,
be like the
his,
third
like,
guy
on
in
the
a sketch
tabloids.
who's
Yeah.
like, hey, how you doing?
It's the last king of Scotland. I think he's just the king of Scotland.
He's just the king of Staten
He's
Island,
just the
and of
king.
course, yes.
When Judd
Idi Amin-
Apatow aspires to Valhalla, or whatever better version we have of describing when a director shoots for Oscar bait, it can be the last king of Staten Island.
But isn't Funny People him shooting for Valhalla? But it's interesting because he doesn't succeed. Like the whole value of
guess
that
so.
movie
He misses
I
the
guess so.
Oscars and lands
on a better
on a
film.
masterpiece.
Exactly.
Right.
That's my take.
It's
See,
fair.
this is why we have to do him. At
I
some
know,
point.
because because Funny People is good.
One of the great films of this century, I would go so far as to say.
it's close for me. It's like a tweener.
I gotta watch it again. I've also seen it like 3 times,
If
but
I-
it's been a few years.
Yeah.
If I ever interviewed Sandler, it would be like, yeah, Uncut Gems, great for the Jews. Punch Drunk Love, we stand Paul Thomas Anderson.
No, that's his best performance.
Let's talk about Funny People for 3 hours.
I think that is the Adam Sandler performance.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like
if you want to reckon with like him as a star, him as a
Yeah.
right, yeah.
best
Ira.
Rogan performance. I think
That's an interesting question. I
Right?
don't think so. He is good.
he's very good.
I think he's usually good.
Sure.
That's the thing with Rogan.
I think he's I think he's incredible in Knocked Up. Like
I
I
agree.
think that's a little underrated.
A movie that I have
almost.
watched and while taking notes about 5 times in the last year. And
any reason?
as,
Oh, 'cause
as
you had
for
to
any
be.
reason,
Oh,
it's helpful. Just because I'm really going through a Katherine Heigl phase right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
She changed her hair color. I saw it on Instagram,
She's also
and I was just
incredible in
like,
Knocked Up.
Yeah.
she's very good in that. But also, that movie is more effective training for having a child than any of the 12 pregnancy or childhood books that I told my wife I read.
well, and Harold Ramis is no longer alive to give you in-person advice.
Yeah,
That
I'm
movie.
sad.
I mean, this
is all you have.
He's so good in that movie.
So good.
This is the one that I feel like anyone would guess that I would say, but I mean,
Long
you know what?
Shot.
He's really, really good at.
Long
Not
Shot.
fucking long. He's
It's
fine
Long
in
Shot.
Long Shot. He's come on. I mean,
It's
you don't
the
like this
obvious
movie,
one?
that one, but I love it. It's just an obvious David loves this movie
It's an obvious David loves this
that
movie.
Rogan's in. He's not even the star.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
I
he's so
think
good in
he's
that.
incredible in that.
Yes,
I think he's the best performance in that movie.
I wonder if he
it's like a 6-way tie for
was
me.
disappointed that he didn't get an Oscar for that. If he thought that was something in the cards.
I don't think that he is someone who experiences that kind of disappointment,
Yeah.
but I do think there was certainly a moment where people were probably saying, like, "Hey, if this hits, you could be
Before
in
the
the
movie
Oscar
came
race."
out,
Yeah.
when it was like being seen by critics
Yeah.
at festivals, then its first weekend, it does really well in limited release, and he was on everyone's 5 prediction list. And then the next weekend, it goes wide, and he drops off of everything.
Can I tell
Yeah,
you
they
that?
blew that movie's release. That was the big problem.
Oh yeah, it's also they blew that movie's ending. Which was,
No, they
blew
didn't.
They blew
No,
its
they didn't. That's why we have to do
decision
Danny
of
Boyle. So
director.
I've tweeted my take, but people need to hear
So,
it.
we have to
I'm going to
do-
sing it.
God, I'm so glad
I'm not
he was
gonna
fired
say
from Bond. But I do want to say that of all the
Disaster.
people in Hollywood and maybe in the world, I am most not only upset that I'm not close personal friends with Seth Rogen, but like I feel like it's a cosmic injustice of some kind that I see him on screen. He speaks to me so clearly. I feel like, of course, we would be. I could be his like super neurotic, uptight, strung. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. Tightly
High-strung.
wound, high strung. Thank you.
Sure, tightly wound.
Friend that he needs to balance out his chill group of funny improv stoners, and some reason God put us on opposite sides of this country. And it's sad. And opposite sides of the economic spectrum and talent.
You should say, because this is an audio medium, I want to let the listeners know, you're not wearing it currently, but you very frequently wear your promotional the night before sweater.
Like deep into the summer.
Deep into the summer,
I don't give a fuck.
Yes.
I just have to. It's my one emblem of Jewish pride. Do I have a mezuzah on my door? No, I do not.
No, but you wear the mezuzah on your heart.
It's exactly right. The scene at the end of Long Shot, which is of course a masterpiece, when he becomes not only America's first mister, first mister, but its first Jewish first mister. I cried.
Yeah, it's interesting. Didn't even remember that scene.
There is only I
remember when he falls down the stairs. It's pretty funny.
It's very funny.
Pretty funny.
I think that movie.
Are those the boys? So good.
Don't remember that line.
So watch Long Shot. It's on cable at all times.
I don't have 18 hours to devote to that. The movie's long.
It's not long enough.
It's definitely long enough.
There's only
it's
one.
It's not even that bad. It's
Fine.
okay.
It's fine. Graded on a curve because we get one romantic comedy a year. There is one joke I guffawed at in that movie, and it's the most Griffin joke, which is also at the very end of that movie when he reveals that Todd McFarlane painted his portrait.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. There's funny jokes, and I like both of their energies. I just like it's like barely a movie.
So Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which I feel like I had seen most of on TV, but had never really like sat down intentionally watched from beginning to end.
Same.
Fair enough.
Immediately,
me too. 100% actually. Yeah.
Immediately. Like, from the first visual, because one thing this movie does very well that I think all the other Mad Max films should do, although, no, I'm sorry, Fury Road does this? No, it doesn't.
What? You have to say what it is.
Opening credits where you list everyone's names and their character
Fury
names.
Road does that in the closing credits,
right.
And I do love it when it does
It's
that.
the only way that movie could have blown minds even faster than it does.
That's true.
Because the character names in Fury Road are...
They're even better than this one. I mean, he only tops himself.
If it's possible, yes.
But this, it
but
starts
this
out
opens
incredibly
with,
strong.
Right.
Tina
Where's the
Turner
one? As anti-entity or whatever.
There's one that fucking blew my mind. Oh, Angry Anderson as Iron Bar. Robert Grubb as Pig Killer.
Yeah, that was a good
killer. Start a movie stronger.
And the funniest, when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, Pig Killer's sort of a sympathetic character.
Well, no, like, did you know that Pig Killer's
He's
a
kind
vegan?
of a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a vegan.
He's a vegan, like IRL or in the movie?
In the movie.
He's a terrific guy. But once the actual visuals start in this movie, it immediately feels like this movie is the one Mad Max film filtered through the Amblin sensibility.
Although, somebody takes swirl in. I was watching the credits for this movie. Of course, my first thought was, maybe this is actually a masterpiece. Like, maybe this is a great film and the world has just slept on it for 30 years and now we are going to bring it to justice. This is before there had been a single shot in the film, just looking at the character names, of course, which are all deserving of a place in a museum somewhere. But man, the last time I was here was for Howl's Moving Castle, and which I picked because I was like, there's a Miyazaki film I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Yeah, you picked it because you wanted something you weren't going to just
And then
obsess
I was
over.
thinking to myself afterwards, I was like, the next time I go on that show, I want to pick a movie that is near and dear to my heart. And so when Sims was like, you want to do Thunderdome, a movie that I have seen 20 minutes of on cable television when I was pretending to be sick from school when I was 10, I was like, oh, hell yes, let's ride and die in the Thunderdome. And so that's where my head was at watching this movie. The Amblin energy is strong with this one, but I do, and maybe we should just circle back to this later, but for me, I feel like the hottest take I've got on this, the most flattering thing I have to say about this movie, is that I don't know if I've ever seen a live action film that has this big Studio Ghibli energy.
Yeah, it has real cartoon world energy. Yeah, it's a fair point.
It has the same sort of spare, beyond the setting of it, but the same sort of like spare aesthetic of Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. It has the same approach to sound design, which it borrows from a lot of like wuxia films of the time. It really has that energy that I think, even when it leans into Goonies territory and becomes super Amblin-y, it still feels the anarchy of it all and just like the sort of just a whole spirit of it feels to me even more in common with Ghibli.
It is also the
It
most.
spends more time in like a town,
Correct.
than the other Mad Maxes, so that helps too.
It's the film that has the longest stretch without action sequences. In a way that's kind of unusual for a Mad Max film. And tied to that, I think it is the most openly emotional Mad Max film.
Yes.
But it is emotional in a film about emotionally reserved characters, which feels very Ghibli adjacent. Where the filmmaking is emotional and the characters are not openly.
Something too about like when it was made,
Mhm.
the aesthetic of sax is great.
Yeah. The
Anytime
on-camera
you get
sax.
like
Yeah.
a sexy sax,
Yeah.
it just really just makes it better.
Also
This
very
is
80s.
It is the jazziest
the
of the
Maurice
Mad Max
Jarre
films as well.
score, right? Rather than Brian May's weird sort of like boing, ding,
Right.
ding, 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 ding.
But
did the
then,
first
and
one.
then pipe clanks too are great.
The pipe clanking in the first half of this movie rules.
It's
Yeah.
so good. Going in, I was like, I know what the take on this movie is, the sort of general take, which is like first 45 minutes, pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
The kids kind of suck. The end's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I watched the movie and I was like, I guess that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah,
like
but-
I was sort of annoyed that I didn't have like, I wasn't
Agreed.
like, oh my God.
I was looking for some radical interpretation. That having been said,
I mean, it's good.
you're
It
right.
has a Thunderdome.
That take is judging it against the 3 other Mad Max movies,
Right.
which fucking rip.
None of which have Thunderdomes, though.
Well, that's the thing. And it's,
Fury Road
so
really
it's like
fucking dropped the
A-
ball. I'm actually going to change my rating to 1 star.
What movies would be best improved by having a Thunderdome? Like, even
Bombshell.
in recent history, like a Green Book with a Thunderdome.
Bombshell.
That'd be good.
That'd be great.
Roger
Fucking
Ailes does
Portrait
look
of a Lady on
more
Fire.
like a wasteland character than a real human being in Bombshell.
That's true.
If you put like a
Yeah, he
metal
was
like
called-
claw
yeah,
on
right.
him,
He was
I mean,
called,
he
like-
could fight in Thunder.
Yeah,
I
like
was reading some
Lord
interviews.
Pig or whatever. It'd be like, great, yeah, makes sense.
I was reading some interviews with George Miller, and he mentions Rupert Murdoch in all of them because Murdoch and his media empire was so
Australian,
crucial to what he was doing.
Yeah.
And Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch are, I guess, technically different people,
But they're kind of a master blaster.
They're a master blaster.
They're a
History's-
unit.
They are a
cinema's
bit of a
greatest love
master
story.
blaster thing.
And
Was it Malcolm McDowell played Murdoch in?
Yes.
In Bombshell?
In Bombshell.
Because there's some Murdoch is also in The Loudest Voice, which I watched every episode of
Wow.
for reasons I cannot begin to fathom.
Wow.
And he's a better character in that. I feel like in Bombshell. he
But
didn't
who
do it.
plays him? You don't remember?
It was more. Fuck, I have to look it up.
See, I think McDowell's really good in Bombshell. I think that's
When's
one
he
of the
bad?
better performances.
yeah, he's
Is
not-
that a fair when's
he
he
is
bad?
incapable
I
of being
think that's
bad.
a pretty fair when he's
Even
when's
though
he
he
bad,
makes
yeah.
like tons of crap, like I feel like you could probably get Malcolm McDowell for your movie with ease.
Yeah.
I told you about like my dad when I was growing up knew someone who knew Malcolm McDowell, and my dad who like did not understand just culture in general, but certainly movies, like learned that I was starting to get into movies and thought it would be cool to have Malcolm McDowell, who starred in Clockwork Orange, which was a film when I was 10 years old I was not intimately familiar with, and had Malcolm McDowell call me on the phone. And I picked up the phone at home and the voice on the other end just goes, "Hello, Droogs." And I was like, "Hello?"
What? He
I
was
was like-
speaking to you in references
Yeah.
to his
no,
own
that was his intro,
career?
as if like someone had cajoled him into calling.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, we know this kid. He's a huge movie fan.
Right.
He's gonna flip his mind when you call him." And he was just like,
Like-
"Hello, Droogs," and I was like, "Hi, who is this?"
But he
great.
treated it as if it was like he's Alan Rickman in Galaxy's Quest finally like deigning to say by Grabthar's hammer.
right.
Exactly. And I was just like, I don't know who you are or what you're talking about, but I remember watching that movie like 7 years later and being like, oh. Can I call him back?
But sounds like he was pretty good on that phone call. I mean, this supports David's thesis that he's never bad.
He's never bad.
He's never bad.
And
It was so go ahead.
it just is very kind of him and mortifying to me.
Even when
of
he's
course, that someone made
literally
him do that.
phoning it in, he
was
never
actually
phones it
phoning it
in.
in.
No, he
Yeah.
brought it. I
Yeah.
was scared in
Simon-
ways I didn't understand.
McBurney.
Oh,
And he was good. Because there's
Interesting.
the crucial scene
Yeah.
in The Loudest Voice, which I watch every episode of on
I
Showtime,
cannot believe this.
is when Ailes has been, slamming Obama on Fox News, right? He's been going hard.
Yeah.
And then he's told, like, this isn't cool because he's going to win. Like, Murdoch sort of comes down and is like, you can't be that mean. And Ailes is like, I can do what I want. He like eats a whole birthday cake, which is like shit that he does in that show. That show's insane. And then he's like supposed to meet Obama. And then instead, like he comes into a room and Murdoch's like, I'm going to go meet Obama and you go home. And like that's when like the power begins to shift.
Wow.
It's a good
Wow.
scene. And then Russell Crowe eats like 4 more birthday cakes. And
Anyway, I
there's
think
so many scenes of him eating birthday cake in that show. I'm not joking.
it tastes delicious. I mean, I don't blame him.
Does he fold it, Tony Lip style?
No, it's just like it's always like Seth MacFarlane is like, "Hey, this is what's going on, boss," and he's like, "Ah, ah," like
It's always somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
But I do feel like
he was
the
talking
Rupert
about
Murdoch type,
Yeah.
or the
Yes.
Roger Ailes type was very much on his mind. Although, he got a lot of money to make these documentary series from the Murdoch Empire, and was actually complimentary about how hands off they were.
Sure.
But
mean,
it's certainly like when he's talking about like future tyrants, and there's a wasteland.
he
he's
loves
thinking about
like tycoon type characters in
Yes.
the Med, like these big. Corpulent or
Yes.
the sort of Tina Turner type, right?
Right.
Like kind of like imperious, like dictator types. He loves them.
Imperator Tina.
Imperator Tina. But yeah, no, that is the Murdoch reputation, like The Simpsons, right? Where he's like, I don't care, I don't watch that shit. You know,
Right.
do whatever you want. I'm
Yeah.
rich.
They just make fun of him all
I'm
the
so
time.
evil.
Doesn't care. I mean, the couple important things for context in this movie. One, as you sort of alluded to, Ehrlich, at this point, Kennedy Miller has become like a pretty big operation. They're doing a lot of stuff in Australia, mostly in TV, but a lot of miniseries, a lot of documentaries. They're supporting a lot of filmmakers. Philip Noyce is going through their system.
That's right.
And will soon cross over to America.
Yeah, there's a very cool sounding miniseries called Bodyline, starring a young Hugo Weaving about a famous Australian cricket drama from the 30s. Sounds kind of cool.
A lot of the Australian film industry luminaries of the 80s who eventually make their way over to Hollywood are sort of being given real shots through the Kennedy Miller operation. And it's a lot of autonomy, a lot of creative integrity, and that these two guys are, by all accounts, real mensches, real supportive, want to raise the tide for all in the Australian film industry. And then the second thing that happens is Byron Kennedy dies, who is very much George Miller's real partner in these first 3 films and in building this little cottage industry they have. And, George Miller was always very, very generous and sort of saying, like, we are 50-50 partners. The fact that I'm the director and he's the producer ostensibly was like a coin toss. We both have as much say in this movie and this world building and all of this. And so when Byron Kennedy dies, he's at the standstill where he's like, do I cancel the movie or do I force myself to make the movie in order to honor this guy? And he decides to go through with it because he feels like it's the best way to pay tribute to Byron Kennedy. But he also brings on a co-director whose name is
George Ogilvy.
George Ogilvy, who was a man who had done a miniseries for Kennedy Miller.
Yeah, and he did Bodyline, the great cricket drama I was
he did
just
Bodyline.
talking about with Hugo Weaving. And other people too, probably, but I don't know who they are.
It was just Hugo
It's
Weaving.
one cast
playing every role, Tom Noonan style in Anomalisa.
Right, and he does eventually go on to make a couple more Australian movies and some more TV movies and so on and so forth. But he's not.
He never quite got beyond Thunderdome.
No,
I'd say.
no,
They left him at Thunderdome.
He did not get beyond Thunderdome.
2 directors enter, 1 director leaves.
Miller says, I asked my friend George Ogilvy, who was working on the miniseries, could you come and help me? But I don't remember the experience because I was doing it just to ... I was grieving.
Right.
So he very much talks about this movie as like, I
was in a haze.
I felt like I needed to do it to work through my grief. And instead, I barely remember what was going on.
Imagine if your grieving process involved outfitting Tina Turner
I
into a
know.
post-apocalyptic town mayor.
Right, with a crossbow.
Yes.
It is weird because this movie is fully formed.
Like,
it's
where
not like
in
you
the
watch this
Dabda
movie and
are
you're
you?
like, what a mess.
But I mean, because I think Kennedy had been there for all of that ideation.
Sure.
You know, everything had sort of been developed, at least on a conceptual stage, that then all that needed to be done was to take it to the finish line. Miller and Kennedy were people who prepped extensively and in great detail, that I think he was bringing on Ogilvy to help like deal with a lot of the actual practical day-to-day stuff that he was too sad to deal with.
Well, the what they'll tell you on IMDb's trivia, which is where I, especially when writing reviews, get most of my information that I need, has never failed me in the past, is that Ogilvy shot all of the dramatic scenes where Miller did all of the action. And I think that breakup is probably A, inaccurate, but B, too clean.
I agree.
I don't think it really works like that.
Right.
I think that's also the kind of thing that fans want to say to make sense of the movie because they don't like the
Is that
dramatic scenes
confirmed
as
at
much.
all? Like, is there any?
I didn't dig too deep
I
into
don't-
it, but not that I found. But I
I
also
don't mean
there's like
to-
such there's such so much of George Miller's DNA,
yeah.
even in the dramatic scenes, that either Ogilvy did an immaculate job
Right.
of sort of getting that vibe, or that's just simply not the case.
I mean, once again, it is. He's a guy who preps so extensively that it's not like if someone's following the plans that he laid out, they're going to remove his DNA from the equation. Something like the two stop motion Wes Anderson movies, where especially for Fantastic Mr. Fox, by all accounts, he was not there. He was not animating or directing the animators or any of those things. He was mostly directing that movie over Skype, but he had written it and he had storyboarded extensively, and he gave them very clear rules to how his visual language works and how it doesn't, what performances he wants. But I think George Miller was far more hands-on than that. When I read interviews with him about this, and he's reluctant to talk about it, I think just because it was so emotionally painful, it doesn't sound like, oh, he wasn't on set for a lot of it and let this other guy carry entire scenes. It sounds like he was on set, but he wasn't totally there mentally.
He just didn't have the emotional bandwidth to do it all.
Yes.
And needed some support.
This IMDb trivia page is actually kind of fun.
I mean,
Such
aren't they
as,
all?
quote, Tina Turner had to shave her head for the wig to fit properly. She reportedly had no problem with that. That's the end of
I
that
love
little
facts
story.
like that,
It's
yeah.
just a little story.
They were asked to do this. They said yes.
They said, okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how Tina Turner has maybe pound for pound cinema's greatest filmography?
Okay, hit me.
Let's run through
Her-
them.
All right, so she appeared as herself in a number of different movies, like Give Me Shelter,
No,
which I
forget
don't
that,
really think
forget
are worth
that.
mentioning. Her first movie where she's playing a character is in Tommy.
She's the
where she
acid
plays
queen.
The acid
Yes.
queen. Acid queen, #1 role on your resume.
Also,
Good
just
start.
sounds like a Mad Max character.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, who are you playing in Thunderdome? The acid queen.
Then
Oh,
yes,
yeah, sure.
from
sure.
there, she doesn't want to go down. The only way
Right.
to keep the momentum going is, of course, to continue playing herself. The only character on par with the Acid Queen. Then the Beatles come and knocking in 1978, and they ask her to play one of the guests at Heartland in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club
Right,
Band.
the movie where the Bee Gees play the Beatles.
Great.
Right.
So the Bee Gees and the Beatles together, arm in arm, showed up at her door
Sure.
and asked her to be in this movie, and she reluctantly said yes. Goes back to herself for a Chuck Berry thing where she is in concert with Chuck Berry, is then Auntie Entity in Mad Max Thunderdome, realizes once more.
I'm sorry. They actually went beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
They went straight through it and far beyond.
My apologies. Then I'll spin the wheel of forgiveness.
Do you want to hear all of the outcomes on that wheel?
Not at this very
All right,
moment.
fine.
But then she is like, okay, I think
More
I've
herself,
put
a documentary.
Put my stamp on this medium, and then is called back into service one last time for Last Action Hero, where she plays
right.
the mayor.
That's right.
Her
Right.
entire filmography of fictional characters are the Acid Queen. I'm not really going to count
Anti-Entity.
Sgt. Pepper's.
It's really Acid Queen,
Auntie
Anti-Entity, and
the mayor.
So she's never played a character with a proper name.
And she's never played a character who didn't have some authority.
A massive
some,
amount.
Not
exactly.
a
Yeah,
ruler
exactly.
over some sort
Right.
of fictional town, usually a wasteland.
Right. Either elected or through birthright or through violence.
Through force,
Has
yeah.
ascended to the top. Yeah. Wow.
Badass.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So here are the options on the wheel.
Yeah.
Death.
Sure.
You don't want that one. Hard labor. It doesn't seem fun.
Not fun to watch.
Gulag, which is sort of similar to hard labor, but whatever. Auntie's Choice. Would have loved to see that one play
Spoiler,
out.
it's the gulag.
Spin again.
Oh,
You always have to have that on a wheel or Magic 8 Ball.
yeah. It's fun because it just ramps up tension.
Forfeit goods, which is actually, that seems like pretty mild.
That's the best one to take. That's
Right.
sort of like getting
he
a
has
whammy.
no
Yeah.
goods at that. I mean, he's there to get goods. So
Yeah.
he's
He's got nothing to forfeit. Yeah.
Underworld. Oh.
You have to watch the
The entire Len Wiseman
the entire
series.
Lindsay
Yeah.
Wiseman series. Yeah, it's tough. I take Gulag personally.
Amputation.
Uh-huh.
Life imprisonment. And then acquittal is
well-
on there. So,
So there's a clear winner. There's one that is
right,
unquestionably.
of course, Underworld.
I just feel like there should be a good thing that isn't just the removal of a bad thing.
Oh, you're saying like acquittal isn't enough. There should be one where you make a profit.
Yeah. And you should get, exactly. And also
Gaining of goods you want.
I worry about what the prison system is like in the wasteland, and also why their need for I mean, everyone is thieving murderer.
So let's not talk around this. The Wasteland could use prison reform, right? It feels like it could use bottom-up prison reform.
There's a New Deal required in the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a lot of wealth that could be redistributed here.
1,000%.
I do like their
classic
pig
use.
fart energy system. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like that they seem to have sorted out.
Methane gas.
And I would say, and Master Blaster, they're getting a lot done.
Totally.
So that's
And can
helpful.
I say it? Master Blaster, an absolute unit.
MVP, right?
Cinema's greatest love story.
Yes.
My favorite kind of character.
Yeah, and probably the biggest of the Mad Max big guys.
Definitely.
The best of the Mad Max big guys.
But when you got a big brawn and then you got a little smart,
this is your number
and
one
they're
favorite.
together, they're a package deal,
Yes.
it's always great.
Right, like Alu Gashu.
Yep. Original character of mine from years ago when we were still just doing Star Wars.
Yeah.
I said that I wanted to have a character named Alagashu who's
Right.
giant, and then he had a little head growing out of his shoulder
Sure.
that whispered in his ear and was the smart one.
And Alu Gashu is still canon within Blank Check Legends.
Yes.
Let's just make it clear. Yeah.
Coming to Hulu.
To Hulu.
Is he a playable character on the Blank Check mobile game?
He is.
Okay, good.
That would be so cool.
Talk about a way of fleecing people from their money. I would give you like $40 a day just buying packs of Alugashu energy for the raid.
I was very surprised. You're currently playing a Star Wars mobile game. Are
Oh
you
no,
not?
it's gotten worse, Griffin.
Oh, is it a Marvel mobile game?
It's both.
Oh, you got into the Marvel
I've
one?
supplemented my Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes addiction with Marvel Strike Force.
Wow.
I'm such an easy mark for this. As like
I tried that one.
a
and
gambling
I just-
addict who
Yeah.
doesn't have access to gambling.
Yeah.
This is really the next best thing
Well,
scratching
that's
the
why I
itch.
play Disney Emoji Blitz.
Right. You're still on that one? Is that your boy?
Yeah, I'm still on that one.
I'm playing a game called Piffle. Very into Piffle.
Okay.
I tried
You shoot cats at
the
blocks.
Disney Battler, like the RPG
Oh,
Battler,
yeah, I'm not crazy
and
about
it
that.
sucks.
Yeah,
it's
it's
also
garbage.
and the DC one is also very bad, but the Disney one, it's really meant for young children who have their parents' credit cards.
Sure.
And you can't control the characters during battle,
Uh-huh.
and so it's just like Olaf, go
Yeah,
fight,
bad.
and watching Olaf throw his own body at people.
Yeah.
It's not.
I tried it, and
compelling.
it wasn't even fun playing as Ralph. Like, you're not even getting
That's
joy out
then
of
you fucked
wrecking
up.
people.
You
Isn't
fucked
he like
up.
one of the default characters they
Yeah.
give you when you start?
Yeah,
I feel
I
like you
just
should have to
started, I was
earn
out.
Ralph.
Well, yes. But it also tells you how bad the game is if Ralph is only set as a default.
Yeah.
Like, he's not more powerful than, fucking Sebastian.
Anyway, those things are a menace. But Master Blaster.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I
Heroes.
want to say. I agree that, we all came to this movie going like, oh, man, I'd love to come in here with a take on why this film's a secret masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is not bad in any way. It also, in pretty much any other franchise, would probably be the best movie. Like, the Mad Max bar is so high and the films are so inventive that this film pales in comparison because it's a little more rote. But if any other franchise had a movie that was this bug nuts, you'd be like, oh, that's the interesting one.
And also the action in this movie is like next level fantastic.
It's hard. I don't know. I feel.
Are you going to diss the action?
No, I'm not
Okay.
going to dis. Let's try it again.
Yep.
Just throwing more consonants at the end of this word that doesn't need it. The man-on-man fight scene action in this movie, which I think, if anything, I mean, you'll see about how George Miller talks a lot about borrowing from Buster Keaton. But for me, again, to go back to sort of the kung fu movies that were being made at the time, is real wuxia energy.
Yes.
Again, for me, it's the sound. It's also the way they use the acrobatics, the way they use in the Thunderdome, where you can't just. I think a common misconception about Thunderdomes everywhere is, of course, that people are just not suspended on
Right.
wires and are just free to run at each other. But
Right.
no, a Thunderdome is not just a geodesic dome, which has hordes of Streets of Rage style extras on the side cheering, throwing you full turkeys to consume to
Yeah,
regain your
Ben
health.
would make a good Streets of Rage movie.
Yes, he
It was
would.
Oh,
like
for sure. I love that game.
shredded jeans.
Oh my God, the jeans are so shredded. In
Oh,
that.
they've got to be. And the shirts.
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
need the harnesses.
Yeah.
And
You gotta
that-
utilize
that's
the whole
rules.
space.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like multi-dimensional fighting. Like, he's adding different axes.
Right. I mean, I think Ebert's review, he
Axes.
literally was like, I've never seen an action
This
sequence
is
like this
he gave
before.
it 4 out of 4 stars and placed it as one of his 10 best films of 1985. And his line is, the Thunderdome itself is the first really original movie idea about how to stage a fight since we got the first karate movies.
Would you say that the Thunderdome is almost like a character in this movie?
Definitely. It's like the fifth character.
Yeah, I think it was
It's in the title.
I think New York
Max.
Film Critics gave it Best Supporting Actor that year.
Anti-Entity,
Max,
Master,
Anti-Entity.
Blaster, Thunderdome.
What about Jebediah though?
Jebediah,
Or Jedediah.
Jedediah,
Yeah.
played by Bruce Spence,
character.
who's
Right.
the gyrocopter pilot and now is the airplane pilot.
I know they were like apparently literally just trying to cast the role, and they were like, "Why don't we just hire him again?"
The same guy.
And he was like, "Can I?" And I'm playing the same character. And they were like, "No, but like, yeah." You
But
know?
it's like Toe Cutter
No, I
and
know.
Morton Joe. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that he just reuses certain people. It's like you have the right energy for this. You work well in this kind of vehicle.
It's hard to make movies out in the middle of the desert. If there's someone you can get along with who's going to do the job, why not bring him back? But I did want to say that the vehicular carnage at the end of this movie, it is hard now in retrospect for it not to feel like it's a dry run for what he was going to do later. Which I guess you could say about really all of the car chases in this trilogy here. But this one in particular feels like, other than the train, which maybe they can bring back in some way.
Train
and
rules.
there's no flying in Fury Road.
Of course, you would say that, David. You love trains.
Love trains.
But
But there
doesn't-
is no flying in Fury Road, right?
No.
The most you've got is sort of acrobatics.
Doesn't the train feel very Indiana Jonesy to you guys? Where
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
All of this feels Spielbergy,
Right.
Not in a mad way.
No. Hey, we like
maybe
Spielberg.
in a mad way.
hey, well,
Also, any train in any context feels Indiana Jonesy to me, or
Yeah.
needs to. Like, I'll be on the Metro North, and I'm like Indiana Jonesy, but needs more so.
sure. And obviously, very Buster Keaton generally.
Yeah.
It's generally.
The general. Yeah.
But it has the Spielberg thing of rather than the usual Mad Max thing of just things intensifying, building, heightening. It's like we're on one track. You're trying to problem solve this thing. It's that Indiana Jones, like every action scene is kind of a puzzle that he has to solve how to not die, rather than it just being like survival, just like outwit, outlast, outplay.
Yeah, well, the Indiana Jones movies are directed by a man named Steven Spielberg, and one of the things that's interesting about him is that he understands that an action sequence can actually be a narrative unto itself and further the story, and doesn't just have to be fucking shit thrown at your face to numb you into submission.
Right.
And that is something that not all filmmakers implicitly understand.
No, Road Warrior also feels a little bit like a dry run for Fury Road, but Road Warrior is so committed to just the fucking car chases. It, like Fury Road, is like 90% just high octane, high speed.
And I wonder if like the brokenness of this story and sort of its lumpen, misshapen quality where the two halves of it feel so different from one another was part of what made him want to do something so streamlined for the next one.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, because for a very long time he said I wasn't going to come back to it. And then Fury Road, he claims, came to him in a fever dream on an airplane. And it was just like, I want to make a movie that's just that.
You know what I think it was? I think it's that he said in an interview on Ann Bilson's blog, which is where I read this very long interview that she did for Time Out magazine. And then it was the interview she wrote for Time Out was canceled because as soon as it was about to go to publish, Orson Welles died of a heart attack, and they just scuttled all that footage.
Wow.
For Orson Welles tributes, like the dude who made Citizen Kane, dead. Time Out. Also, here's where you should drink tonight in London. But the thing that I read in that interview is he was like, they were asking about the music, and he's like, I just couldn't figure out a way to get rock music in Mad Max, and I don't think I ever will.
I stopped at jazz.
And then jazz is one thing. Jazz is no problem. But rock, impossible. And then one day he was
figured
like
it out.
a man strapped to the front of a truck with his guitar on fire.
And he is the most Thunderdome character because he's got sort of a bungee cord thing
Yes.
going on, the Doof
Right.
Warrior,
But there's that thing of this movie felt like, A, they were on a roll, why not continue it? B, Road Warrior had been such a breakout success in the US in a way that the first one wasn't. So there was like Warner Brothers more actively, I think, supporting and asking for another Mad Max film. And Mel Gibson's star was growing independently. After
That's true,
this,
right.
he does Lethal Weapon and then explodes and then, just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until he completely crashes into the side of a wall.
But in between Mad Max 2 and this, he had made The Year of Living Dangerously, which is sort of...
Gallipoli.
No, Gallipoli is pre-Mad Max 2.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Same year, I believe.
Gotcha.
But I feel like Year of Living Dangerously is like, this is a fucking Hollywood bulletproof, so handsome leading man. Like
Right.
that performance might be his best performance. He's so phenomenally handsome in that movie. I know that Mel Gibson is has an ugly soul and is not the greatest person in the world.
Wait, so did Mel Gibson get canceled?
That he has been canceled thrice over. And
Listen, we have to separate the hot from the hotness.
I do feel like You're Living
here.
Dangerously is kind of that movie where Hollywood is like, maybe we should give this guy a call, right?
Well, and you can even tell that like he's excellent in the first and second films, but in this one he shows up and just has the energy of I have completely figured out how to be a movie star.
He has a little more to do as well. I don't even. That's not even a good or bad thing.
But the driving force behind this movie sort of hinges
a little more
on
of a Hollywood arc, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But it sort of hinges on the perception of his morality, on the idea of Mel Gibson emanating a sort of intrinsic goodness. Like that is at the root of this movie in a way that it wasn't in the two previous films, because this is a story. George Miller's described it as a coming out story of his own, like the character's own innate sense of empathy for other human beings. That he once upon a time was a decent human being who had a family who he loved, who we meet in the first movie. And then after things went to shit, even further than they already had, convinced himself that survivalism was the only way to get by, just a ruthlessness, look out for himself and no one else. And you see that in The Road Warrior, where he is mostly doing things to avoid his own murder. And then sometimes realizes that helping other people might be advantageous to his own wants. But this is the first movie where when he's with the kiddies in the second half of the movie, and things go real Peter Pan real fast, that he is doing something not only for his advantage, but also he sees a sort of glimmer of opportunity and hope there, a chance to rebuild, and is sort of emerging into that goodness. And the whole movie, I think, is made possible at that time because the world is starting to get a sense that this is our Tom Cruise now, pre-Tom Cruise.
Right.
Like, this is a guy who has a good soul, and all of the barbarousness of the wasteland is sort of grafted on top of that. And it's just so funny seeing that didn't quite pan out.
Sure, but it is a movie that has this sort of meta energy of, we have to acknowledge that this character has now become an icon. The audiences are going to be excited when Max shows up on screen again. So you kind of want the universe to reflect that in some way. That characters are more terrified of him and other characters look up to him more, think he's more powerful and capable of saving them. And secondly, that this guy is now a movie star. He's minted. It's unquestionable. This guy's on the track. So you need to give him a little bit more of like a classical hero's journey, down to this having the
kids and
the real refusal of the call beat that the other movies don't really do. They just have him kind of fight against saving at every moment. He's always conflicted in any moment how much he wants to help. This movie has the I'm going to hear your story. I'm going to walk away. You're going to win me back. I'm going to go all in.
It's great when the refusal of the call comes 80 minutes into a film. You know you're really cooking with gas then.
Right, because he actually answers Tina Turner's call, right? And then he's annoyed that she was just kind of using him, and
he answers
like,
a
no more
spam phone call.
Ring, ring, Thunderdome? Yes, ma'am.
I want to point out just the movies, apart from You're Living Dangerously, that he had done, none of them hits, but it is the first sign of him making he made a movie called, he made The Bounty with Anthony Hopkins, which was a bomb, but was like a big costume drama, right? The Bounty remake. Then he made The River, which I've never seen, with Sissy Spacek and Scott Glenn. That's a Mark Rydell movie, which is like an American movie. And he made something called Mrs. Soffel. I have never heard of it, but it's directed by Gillian Armstrong.
Okay.
Stars Diane Keaton and him.
Wow.
He could have been a good
look
young
at this
Bruce.
movie.
I feel like back in the day.
What
A
is
young
this
Bruce?
movie?
Like he could have played in the River movie.
Oh,
which,
sure.
Springsteen.
Because he had that sort of high tufty hair. And
he could have pulled it off.
I mean, he's just he's in Lethal Weapon is the one that figures it out, but his eyes are incredible, and he really does seem like a really scary person.
Speaking of his hair, he has, I think, maybe the exact same wig that he later busts out for Braveheart. This feels like
a similar
dry run for that.
Right. It's like a 90s version of a period adventure haircut.
Yeah, I mean, the 80s, this modeled, long
feathered,
mane,
sort of high.
It's a mullet.
Yeah, and he was just reading about, Robert the Bruce and William Wallace, and was like, kind of looked hot in that wig. Let's win some Oscars.
George Miller has talked about the innate sort of insanity of Mel Gibson, and that being the main thing that drew him to him in auditions. That I think the better he became as a movie star, the more he both figured out how to use it and also know how to not let it overwhelm every other bit of energy he had. I mean, when he's really like cooking as a leading man, it is that thing where just like he has crazy eyes all the time, but he's able to project other energy in addition to that. And it is that way that like a lot of the best actors are angry. You know, there's some sort of like fiery energy there that is just innately watchable. And if they're able to layer things on top of that, then they're able to play multiple different shades and colors.
Do you think this is what's holding you back as an actor? Like, I look at you now.
I'm furious.
You're
I'm
wearing
such an
a
angry
T-shirt
person.
that has one of the little
Aliens
guys
from Toy Story.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're just not like the portrait of anger that I
I
would
know.
expect from an up-and-coming leading man.
I'll tell you though, the single biggest note I got on season 1 of The Tick was that I was playing every single scene too angry. And I think that performance is too angry, and that was them cutting it down and trying to use only the takes where I was the least angry. I think I got it better the second season, but I think that's also, it's more compelling to be angry if you look like Mel Gibson or Gene Hackman than if you look like Griffin Newman, maybe. Maybe. This is a thesis I'm working on.
Post this,
Mhm.
Lethal Weapon,
Yes,
Tequila Sunrise,
Mhm.
Lethal Weapon 2.
right. And then Lethal Weapon 2 is just explosion.
Right. Bird on a Wire. Air America, which was kind of a hit at the time.
Yeah.
With Downey.
Forever Young.
Hamlet,
Right.
which is him going serious, not really being respected for it,
No.
but like a pretty solid movie, like a
read-
solid Shakespeare drama.
You read the
costume.
reviews at the time, and it is treated as if it were Channing Tatum announcing that he was going to do
yes.
Hamlet.
Which is unfair considering the Australian half of his career.
That's what's
You know,
weird.
it's fair enough considering in his American movies he was mostly like
It's
an
also
action star.
unfair
I guess.
considering that Channing Tatum's breakthrough role was in She's the Man, which is in itself a Shakespeare
Well,
adaptation.
well-
That's a fair point.
Well, that's
and we
actually a
should
very
go and
good
point
point.
that out to the 1990 reviewers
We
because
should.
they
I
would
plan on it.
love
Yeah.
hearing all of that.
But you're right.
And it would make sense to them.
It is weird that he was dismissed that much and mocked that much playing
When it's
Hamlet.
like this guy was in Peter Weir
He did
movies
2
and
Peter
stuff,
Weir movies
whatever.
that,
It's
like,
not
won
crazy.
Oscars and
And then Forever Young and Lethal Weapon 3, and then he does Man Without a Face, his
Yeah.
directorial debut, Maverick, Braveheart.
I mean, his 90s are just like, all of them are hits pretty much. Even the ones that haven't aged well, you're like, all of these did well. Ding dong. Ding dong.
Oh, I thought we might escape. Okay, without a doorbell ring, but who we got?
There's no escape from the torture of everyday life, David.
All right, open the door.
Okay. Creak. Cowabunga, dudes.
Oh, well, okay. Hello. You're one of the Ninja Turtles.
Can you guess which one?
I don't know. What do you like on your pizza?
Anchovies.
All right, so you're Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
See, I was
nice to meet you.
I was testing to see if you could identify without the bandana and my initial on my belt.
Of course, right. But now you can put on your orange bandana. Everyone's wearing bandanas right now.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man. I was appreciating having the bandana off for a little bit, even though it makes me look unprofessional. This thing gives me a splitting headache.
Oh, okay. Have you found any way around that, to deal with the pain?
No, I haven't. I'm just dealing with pain, anxiety, and sleeplessness all the time, dude.
Well, that does not sound radical.
No, and I'm a radical bro.
You are, but listen up. I can help you out, Michelangelo. Glad you walked in here today. Feels is a better way to feel better, okay? It's premium CBD that's going to keep your head clear and help you feel your best. It's been proven to greatly reduce, listen up, anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness.
Whoa, dude, that sounds totally tubular.
And I know, look, CBD, navigating the whole world of it can be complicated, but it feels they make the process as simple as possible so you can start feeling better sooner, okay? They have a free CBD hotline that helps you guide through the discovery process and a hassle-free membership program that's guaranteed to help you feel your best month after month or your money back. It's that simple. It's shipped direct to your doorstep in only a few days.
Wow, man, this sounds radical. I mean, I don't have much experience with CBD, as a native New Yorker. You can tell from my accent, my attitude. Everything about
Sure.
me reeks of New York.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that. But
Cowabunga, dudes.
right. Okay.
Definitely don't have a SoCal vibe. So tell me more about CBD.
Well, it's a really fun little service. It comes to your door every month, and it's this little flight of different oils that you can try out. You can figure out which one is best for you, which dose is best for you. And then you can just get more of it every single month. Maybe you want to help yourself sleep. Maybe you want to reduce some anxiety. Put a few drops under your tongue. You'll feel the difference within minutes.
Well, okay, but what if I'm worried that I'm not doing it correctly?
What if you're worried that you're not doing it? Well, you can just join the Feels community, get some human support. You know, they've got a free hotline that'll help you guide your personal experience.
Human support? It's not Shredder, is it?
I hope not, because he shouldn't be working for
Totally bogus
CBD companies. All right, listen. Feels has me feeling my best every day, and it can help you too. Become a member today by going to feels.com/check, and you'll get 50% off your first order with free shipping. That's feals.com/check to become a member and get 50% automatically taken off your first order with free shipping. Feels.com/check.
And just to be clear, they do deliver to the sewer, right?
Sure. Yeah, why not? As long as you got a zip code.
The opening shot of this movie is, after the awesome opening credits, set to a Tina Turner song, is just George Miller immediately showing off that he has big studio money now, that he's got Warner Brothers money.
It's so cool.
The helicopter shot.
The helicopter shot's amazing.
Where you just
and you're
stay,
like, is this Mars? Like,
right.
What is this
and it's
landscape?
so cool that it's revealed to be a subjective shot. It's not just like
right, that we're
flying
actually
an
in a
aerial.
plane.
You're the
Right.
POV of
Yeah.
Jedediah. But it is like, you know, we've talked about these movies just feel so fucking big because the landscape is endless. Yeah. And you just can't see like any civilization anywhere off in the distance. You can't imagine where the crew would be. And this movie just does the craziest one of them all, which is just like, we're going to show you what feels like a different planet and just push in and in and in and in until you realize there's an action scene going on in the middle of it.
Yeah, so Jedediah, he buzzes Max with his son, steals his shit.
Let's say Max is in his V8 Interceptor, but it's being drawn by horses.
That's right, which is
Camel.
Cool.
Camel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Which is cool.
Right. He's presumably run out of gasoline.
He is out of gasoline.
Gasoline.
He
He
don't
hasn't
know
been to
it's
gas
Max
town.
though when he takes the stuff.
Well, no, I don't think they really.
Because he's like covered and they don't write letters and keep in touch.
Different guy, ostensibly.
Okay.
Ostensibly different guy.
Sure.
But
Okay.
I also like that you could read it as being the same as the driver.
That's how I did, but yeah.
I would love if one of the people who runs one of these post-apocalyptic towns would have pivoted away from just naming it after what it does and like give us like a Pleasantville or something.
Right.
Town.
Sand Village.
Yeah. Pleasantville. This is where we barter.
So he makes it to Bartertown.
Where, as the name implies, you gotta barter.
Yes, you do have to barter, and he's got nothing to barter
That's the
with.
problem. He's got
so
nothing.
they're kind of like, maybe leave.
Everything he got was
you're
just
not welcome
tooken.
Tooken, yes.
Right.
To Tuckentown.
By
So he's
Jedediah.
looking to get a little something to get himself back on the road. And they're like, you got to put up or shut up.
You
here
got
in
what's the
Bartertown.
big guy's name? Who's sort of like anti-entities, like
with all the glasses.
Yeah, he's
Yes,
sort of like the
the
sort of
little
ombudsman
monocle,
type,
yeah.
right? You know, I can't remember their names.
The Collector?
That might
is that
be
the
it.
Collector? I think it's this guy, Frank Thring,
Yeah, of course.
who is in Ben-Hur.
Of course, yeah.
We love him.
I think it's this guy.
He looks
Yeah.
kind of like Connor Radcliffe.
Ooh.
Ratliff.
He's got a little Ratliff energy. Yeah, this guy, right?
Yes.
Okay. As they described him, a cold-eyed Australian character actor,
Cold-eyed.
particularly known for
Cold-eyed?
his biblical villains. Apparently, his eyes were cold, and it also says here there's a quote from him on the page, a personal quote on his IMDb page that says, "I didn't like school, and it didn't like me."
There you go.
Do you know, Sir Alec Guinness got him fired off of A New Hope because of his cold eyes.
So he gets to Bartertown with the Collector.
No, but
anti-entity.
but he does some cool Mad Max shit, right? He's still got it. He's got the reflexes.
Yeah.
He can, get his way out of a fucking headlock or whatever. And so Anti-Entity is like, all right. You're the real deal.
And he's looking kind of busted. He's got long, ratty
He's got the hair, but they
Yeah.
get rid of that.
Yeah.
They get him looking really. Well, what I need to stop praising Mel Gibson's looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let's stop praising his look and start praising his politics. I think that he's pretty even-handed.
Yeah.
What do you think of Tina's lair?
Great layer.
I think it's a great lair.
I just still can never get over that you're like Mad Max. 2 films that are all just about this one fucking guy. No supporting characters carry over into the second film. Everyone else is kind of just like supplementary, like universe building, window dressing. And then they're like, finally, another actor to share above the title billing with Mel Gibson in the third Mad Max film, who is, of course, Tina Turner in her second film role ever. Like, it's such a move to just be like, yes, this one is a two-hander with Tina Turner, even though she disappears for most of the movie.
Two-hander with Tina Turner, right?
But she seems
It's a
all in.
TTTH.
Like she, and from all accounts, she was very.
She was cool with shaving her head.
Yeah, she was supportive on the project and remained friendly with Mel Gibson. Tried to help him when he was at his lowest. But not that that's remaining friends with Mel Gibson is necessarily the highest mark of someone's
Wrote two
honor,
songs
but,
for the movie, both of which were hits.
huge hits. But there's not a moment in her performance where you feel her holding back, cringing, or thinking like, "What am I doing here in the fucking desert?" Acting with Mel Gibson. She's
and it's like smart casting in that. In a Mad Max universe, what you're looking for is more rock star energy than conventional actor energy.
Yes.
You want someone who can wear the shit out of some clothing.
Yes.
And can move with authority.
Lord Humongous, famously headlined Ozfest.
He did.
And now you have Tina Turner, who famously did not.
And Master Blaster were at Woodstock 2000, right?
Yes.
Woodstock
They
99.
started the
I
fire.
fucked it up. They started the fire.
Oh, Master Blaster is so cool.
Yeah.
It is so funny that she's like, all right, here's my problem. One, look at these pigs. And Max is like, of course.
Yeah,
You
I get
got
it.
a bunch of pigs.
Been there.
She's got a periscope in her lair.
She has a periscope in her lair. She also has a cool crossbow, which is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you're into crossbows, right?
I mean, my parents would never let me have one.
Sure.
It's interesting they wouldn't like. Why not? They're so practical. Great thing for a child.
They said they didn't trust me with it.
It's bizarre because you proved yourself so responsible with that slingshot. Why wouldn't they give you a deadlier
That's what I
projectile
said.
weapon?
It's fine.
Just want to remind all our listeners that Ben used to literally carry around a slingshot as a child. I feel like it's a while since that's been brought up, so I just want to reestablish that as canon. It is not legends. It is main
real. That's
continuity
canon.
canon.
That's some night egg shit.
Yeah.
But you're saying her other problem is like, also there is this Voltron of a human team.
There's this sort of big strong guy, little smart guy combo
What if brains
that knows
plus
how to
brawn?
turn pig poop into energy.
Right.
So I kind of rely on them, but they keep like negging me publicly over the PA system.
What if you had a big dummy with a tiny gentleman?
I essentially need you to stop them from tweeting at me in front of all my followers.
These people just will not stop. The ultimate reply guys, you could say, Master Blaster. They're kind of the Krasenstein brothers.
but I
Just
do.
shit
I just
posting all day long with pig shit. Pig shit posting.
What
day
I
and
think
night.
rules about this is that I am on Tina Turner's side at the start of the movie because she's Tina Turner. So
Yes.
I'm just sort of like, look, Max, listen to what she's got to say. These Master Blaster, they're lame. Like all the way up to the reveal of like what's really going on with Master Blaster. You are in. You get it. You get why Max is doing it.
And this is another key. This is why you need to hire Tina Turner.
Yes.
Or someone of equivalent star power, because there are a lot of great supporting character actor performances in these Mad Max movies, but you need someone who shows up and seems like she can go toe-to-toe with Mel Gibson to be the dominant force of this movie.
And could also just like use her sheer sort of charisma and inherent sense of leadership to win over this area. There's the idea that I think is meant to rhyme with what happens to Max when he joins the kids at the end of, she was not a bad person. She may still not be a bad person. She was following the ordinary hero's journey, but she planted her flag and stuck around a little bit too long, and you live the hero long enough to become the villain or at least the antagonist.
Right.
That, like,
She's the least villainous of the four Mad Max films.
And she's just trying to hold it together. And I think later on, Max gets the idea where these kids look at him as a god and he could do some good for them. But there's no way that dynamic doesn't harden into him being some kind of despot, if even coming from a paternalistic place, that he would be better just leaving as a legacy and letting them carry on in the positive image that he left behind.
Well,
She's in the same boat.
That's the weird heroism of Max, is that here's a guy who started out as quote unquote a good cop, right? This is someone who, by all accounts, at least as the movie codes it, became a law official, an officer of the law in order to help people and protect people, right? For the right reasons. Right. And then he has everything taken away from him in a way that makes him question all justice, right? Seems like he's on a path to becoming an insane vigilante. And then the following three movies, it is him trying to be like, I don't care. I'm not going to get invested.
He gets sucked into some situation. He's like, I don't care. I gotta go.
Right.
I gotta fucking go.
And the moment he finally gives in, fights for other people, helps them, and proves himself, and could be seen as a hero, he walks away. He always walks away because I think pointedly he doesn't want to become Auntie Entity. He doesn't want to start buying his own
He's not
shit.
going to make Max Town
Right.
with fucking, his like Maxites and have a bunch of Max children.
I think he understands that like the greatest through line across the Mad Max franchise is like the cult of personality and absolute power corrupting absolutely. That the second these people accept that they have done something great and let people sort of follow their every whim and listen to their every judgment and rebuild society in their own image or their own sort of value systems, the second they get all fucking out of whack. Yeah. Because Immortan Joe used to be a really fucking cool guy.
Immortan Joe, like, he built hospitals.
Yeah.
He built, no, I don't know.
He was a socialist originally.
He built hospitals that were entirely filled with people that he had put into those hospitals. He just needed places to put them.
The Immortan Joe ward.
Anyway, so Max challenges Master Blaster to a Thunderdome duel.
But it's
as you do.
It's a handshake deal. It's like,
sure, yeah. She's
hey,
like,
look, you got anything to
do
barter?
this, I'll refuel your vehicle.
I'll give you everything you need to get back on the road. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
And what's the thing that he says when he goes like, is he a good fighter? And he gets most men get killed by his breath or something like that. Right.
I mean, this movie has some of the greatest disses ever committed to film, and that includes the number one greatest diss of all time, which I don't believe is uttered until the second half of the film when it's spoken by one of the children, who says, and I quote, "He's got word stuff from his ass to his mouth."
Yep.
Which is really how I've wanted to describe so many people in this world, and couldn't possibly say it better myself.
I'll say word stuff from ass to mouth is how I usually describe this podcast.
How dare you? How does he realize that Blaster's weakness is sound? Like, because that's how he defeats Blaster.
When he's in the pig shop.
Yes,
the alarm for his car goes off,
right,
and he recognizes the high frequency messes with him.
But the whole Thunderdome sequence is the best sequence in the movie.
It's incredible.
It's just, I love it. There's still nothing
it's like a video game come to life.
And there'll never be anything like this. Well, no, there could be. But like, you know what I mean? Like now it would be previs and it
should
would
have
be,
just left the Thunderdome standing as a set that other productions could come and use.
Every movie should have one Thunderdome
You could do
sequence.
like, just
End
like
of
in
Act
terms of
One.
endearment, Thunderdome.
Right.
Or XFL.
Yes.
Add a Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Well,
then I watch.
But like, what if the opening scene in The Place Beyond the Pines, a movie that I think everyone listening to this podcast knows by heart,
of course,
not just set in
another movie that's like pretty good and then really bad,
right?
You're like, not this is less extreme, but
I
you know
wish
what
it
I mean?
were bad in the same exact way as this one is, but that had that not just been in a random dome, but in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, but it is pretty cool when the motorcycles are doing that thing.
Yeah.
But like any movie that's shooting, they're like, we could shoot in Louisiana for the tax breaks, or we could shoot in Melbourne for the Thunderdome.
I think that's the big problem, though. If you look it up, the tax incentives in the Thunderdome are horrible.
Yes. That's true. That you have to pay more taxes somehow.
It's easier to like fake Connecticut for Thunderdome. Because there's just a better initiative
it's just
there.
Not quite
the local film office in Thunderdome is dropping the ball.
There are a lot of things that are really intrinsic to our world today that I wonder if they have in the Wasteland. And the big one when I was watching this movie through the lens of my shitty personality was thinking about neuroses in the Wasteland. Like, are there neurotic people? Are there is there self-deprecation or self-loathing, or is everyone just is it the hierarchy of needs been so reduced that everyone is just thinking like, okay, I gotta eat, I gotta kill, I gotta survive the Thunderdome.
Yeah, because even the Weasley people in the Mad Max universe are very aggro.
Yeah.
And everyone's constantly like speaking through playing the dozens at all times.
I feel
like no one's ever sort of like going like, well, I tried my hardest.
Yeah. I feel like Jedediah, who's sort of doing his own thing, is the closest to someone we might be able. Like I'm like, I could see me doing that, like being kind of like a scavenger jerk.
The scene where they go to his home cave.
That's what I'm thinking of.
You know who really triggered me though was the guy selling water outside of Bartertown, who Mad Max then tests the water and finds all the radiation on it.
And he's like, what's the problem with that?
A little fallout, pep in your step. It's basically 5-hour energy. And I was like, that fucking dick.
All that shit is so good.
So
the Bartertown shit.
Yeah.
Ugh. I love the Thunderdome. But then, yes, the revelation is that Blaster has Down syndrome. He's he's not the aggressive, cruel villain that
it's purely survival.
He appeared to be. Exactly.
Right. He's just got caught cosplaying Bioshock when the Fallout hit and was stuck in that look forever.
Bioshock's so inspired by the look of Master Blaster, right? Yeah.
Sure.
and also,
Daddies.
like deep sea diving.
God,
but
I love Big
let's go with
Daddies
Master
so
Blaster.
Yeah, let's go with Master
I
Blaster.
should do that on my video game podcast.
Yeah.
And Max is just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm not fucking doing this.
But
like,
he announces it to the
yes.
audience, which is a
He's
bold
like, you tricked
fucking
me,
move.
anti-entity. Like, no.
Yeah, I fulfilled my part of the deal.
Right.
And then Blaster is like, deal? What are you talking about, deal?
Right.
Everyone sort of turns on him. He's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing the killing.
Right. So
Wait,
what-
you got to get Gore Verbinski on the podcast. I think you can get him talking about the BioShock movie that he never made. Now
I
is
would
the time.
love to hear
Now
about
is
that.
the
I feel like
time.
he's been attached to multiple video
And
game movies.
I want Karen
Yeah.
Hahn sobbing quietly in the corner, not speaking. I just want to hear.
I would love to talk to him
for 2
about
hours.
BioShock because BioShock is
Not that I wouldn't love to hear Karen Hahn
filmable
speak.
in a way that most
Yeah.
video game movies are not. Anyway, Auntie has Blaster. She just kills Blaster. She
Crossbow.
finishes the job. She crossbows him. Max, get out of here.
Yeah.
Get on a horse.
You don't belong here.
Right, exactly. You're going that away.
Yeah.
5 stars for this movie so far.
Agreed.
I'm just like, this is the bad one, but I also know, I do know that there are these Ewok-esque kids on the horizon
But once again,
who I'm quote unquote not gonna like. And I like the kids.
Yes.
This is the thing. I like the kids just fine.
Wait, can we just, before the moment has passed completely, can we have a moment, if not of silence, of quiet contemplation for the random extra outside of the Thunderdome who gets murdered during the fights?
Yes.
One of my favorite extras. Just what a way to go. And how excited that guy must have been when he was picked by George Miller to be the guy on the cage who gets killed.
Featured extra, man.
Yeah.
Hey, also the scepter carrying, shoulder pad, scarecrow,
Yes, of
creepy guy.
You mean your uncle?
Yeah.
A lot of shoulder pads in
Wait,
this movie.
would you get residuals, Griffin, if you were the extra who's killed outside of Thunderdome?
Huh.
Extras don't get residuals.
They
right?
don't.
But
I think,
featured extra.
I
Yeah,
think
but-
featured
right.
extras don't.
I don't think you need a certain amount of lines or
dialogue's
whatever,
the
right? Yeah,
crossover.
yeah.
You get a harpoon.
You get a harpoon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dialogue's the crossover because there's like I've been on sets where like people will be improvising lines specifically referencing certain extras, like naming them,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll get to the point where they're like, "Can we let him say something?" And it becomes the debate of, do we have the room in the budget to bump him up to respond to the ad lib and say yes?
But what constitutes dialogue? So if I was impaled by something and went, ah, and then fell off, let's say, a Thunderdome,
Right.
would that be enough to constitute dialogue?
Possibly. But certainly if it was like, no, it would immediately cross over. I wonder if it has to, I wonder if you have to take out Merriam-Webster's and go like, is not in here. You know, it has to be.
Can I play this word in the New York Times spelling bee
I guess
game
that's part
or
of the
not?
question. But I
Always
think
the-
it's
the
usually
way of
any
method.
sort of clear verbalization that isn't in a crowd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Sure.
He goes beyond Thunderdome. This
goes-
is actually the point at which he goes beyond Thunderdome.
That's when the title starts to make itself
How
pretty.
fucking badass would it be if he went like a Ho Xiao Shen route and dropped the title card when he left?
That would be
Thunderdome?
very cool.
That would
That
rule.
would. I mean, I am always a fan of like the 45 minutes in dropping. I believe what's it called? Long Day's Journey Tonight drops the title card
does it
2
ever?
hours in.
Yeah.
And with great purpose.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
100%,
really,
100%.
But man, that move is always so hot.
Alias used to pull that. It would drop the title card like 30 minutes into an episode or whatever. Like there's shows that
Departed. I think it's 40 minutes.
it's not 40. Departed has 3 full sequences though, and then
And they're
finally
long
does. They're long.
sequences.
Last
Right.
Life in the Universe. A lot of Asian films over the last like 20
I
years.
feel like
have
there's
brought this
another
out.
big one I'm forgetting that we've covered on this podcast where the title card comes really late. But whatever, I'm not going to hold us up on it. I do think, once again, I just want to
I
reestablish
feel like it's
this
a
thing.
hard thing to Google.
Yes. It is one of
There's
these
got to be a
things.
letterbox list.
There's something.
Eternal Sunshine also takes a long time before it gets to the first title card. But this is one of those movies that most of its issues are only a matter of comparison, where it's like, you're in a franchise where the bar is set so high, where the second movie totally like trumps the first movie, and then you also have a third movie in which the first 40 minutes are so fucking insanely good that it's almost impossible to live up to them. That I like everything that happens for the rest of this movie. It just doesn't rock my fucking socks to the same
Exactly.
extent.
That's how I feel too.
But I don't want the dipping quality of the second half to elevate the first half too much. I mean, I think the first half of this movie is very solid.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just talking about in terms of the greater Mad Max universe. I think on its own would be even more impressive. But it's not. It doesn't quite reach the heights of some of the other movies.
David,
Yeah.
I love talking.
You do. You love to gab.
You love talking. It's why we have a podcast.
We love to gab with each other.
And here's the thing. The joy of the podcast used to be us being in the same room together, hanging out. But that's not really possible in this time of social distancing. So we have used technology, the computers and the gadgets and the interwebs and the whatnot, to be able to keep talking to each other during this weird and scary time. And it's important. Right. It's important to talk to people, especially when you can't make it into the same room as them.
That's fair, yeah.
Now, not everyone has a podcast that they can do remotely. So
no,
for those people,
pretty much everyone's going to start one. But no, go ahead.
I think so.
Ahead.
The point is, Talkspace exists. Thank God, because we all have something we want to change about ourselves, whether it's spending too much time on social media, relevant, or wanting to start a new hobby, relevant. People love baking bread, apparently, as of this week. But if you're like me, like most people, taking action can feel impossible without the right support. And it's hard to find that sort of self-discipline and support in a time of lockdown like this.
That's fair, but Talkspace Online Therapy, it's the most convenient and affordable way to make lasting change in your life. With the support of a licensed therapist, you can send them text, audio, picture, video messages from your phone or computer whenever you need to, even if it's on the way to work or even if you are at home all the time now.
Yeah, anywhere. In the sewers even, like the Ninja Turtles. This offer, I want to make it clear, this offer applies to the Ninja Turtles, and it even applies to Splinter. He seems pretty balanced. He's a rat of sage wisdom, but I don't know what he's going through, you know? I don't know what he's been bottling his whole life.
You're absolutely right. The other thing I want to point out is that Talkspace matches you with a licensed therapist based on your needs and preferences. And they have thousands and over 40 specialties to pick from. So if you have something very specific you want to work on, they can find someone right for you, such as Splinter would want to work on turtle communication, something like that. I don't know.
And this is the point. They're going to match you to someone who fits what you're looking for. So if you're Splinter, they might find you a therapist who is a giant rat trained in the martial arts. But if you're Shredder, they're going to make sure that's not who they assign you because they understand that's going to be a trigger.
Once you're matched, you can start therapy the very same day. And even though people think that therapy is just analyzing dreams or digging into painful memories.
Which it can be, and that stuff's fun. I love that stuff.
Right, but it can also just be a great tool for developing coping skills and dealing with stress, and that could be really helpful right now. Okay.
Training new neural pathways.
The bottom line is that life can be hard, and Talkspace wants to give more of us the support we need at a price we can afford. As a listener of this podcast, you can get $100 off your first month of Talkspace. To match with your preferred therapist, go to Talkspace.com or download the app. Make sure you use the code CHECK to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's CHECK and Talkspace.com.
It's weird that all of our advertisers this week have all this Ninja Turtle stuff in their copy, huh?
Absolutely, but you know, it's on people's minds.
C'est la vie. It's topical.
All right. Check and Talkspace.com.
Okay, he's in the desert. He's got a dang mask on his head. He's on a horse.
That's a fair point.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna incur the wrath of a certain subsect of blankies, but I don't care. We have pissed them off before. I'm gonna piss them off again. I stand by it.
Oh my God.
From the moment Max comes upon this tribe of kids, I go, this is already superior to Hook.
Oh, yeah.
This is the exact dynamic Spielberg is trying to achieve with the Lost Boys and Hook that feels so forced to me in that film. So like 90s tubular, every kid has to be an action figure.
Skateboard? Am I remembering?
Yeah,
of course they do.
They do every fucking thing.
It's weird
They
because
do the backpack dance. They do trends that wouldn't exist for another 20 years. They throw down pogs.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Hook in general is what you're talking about, is that everything's a little too clean.
Yeah.
You know, the kids feel like they're, you know, like that they've all been cast out of toy commercials,
too much fucking business, which Spielberg himself admits. He's the first one to throw this criticism at himself.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It cannot be a hot take to say that Hook has some problems.
Not a single one of them looks at Rufio and says he's got word stuff from his ass to his mouth.
Yeah.
Which should have been the first line of dialogue in almost every scene.
But I think there is genuine chaotic energy to these children. You know, there's a sense of danger.
And I like their dialect. I like how weird they sound. I like their weird way of talking.
Future speak. This is like, I think maybe the best out of all four.
It's up there.
It's so good.
I really
and the kids
like
are
the
delivering
Fury Road
on
Future
it.
Speak. But yes,
Yeah.
the kids are good.
This
They're doing
feels like
good.
a really direct precursor to the True of Cloud Atlas.
Oh, yes. That is a very good point.
Yeah.
But I do think, there's something to, even if this is the most sort of cute section of any Mad Max film,
Sure.
this still is the only time I have seen someone build a society of children like this in a genre film that feels aggressively dangerous, in the way that kids governing other kids would be.
actually.
We
It's
were
like-
dangerous for sure.
It's half Lost Boys and it's half like Lord of the Flies, but it's also like this is the language that kids would speak if kids raised each other.
But I think he gets a little bit caught up in he's snagged between wanting to tell a softer story that is a little bit more permeable for the Max character to like have that sort of coming out as he's described it towards the better angels of his nature,
Yeah.
and also wanting to maintain the savagery of the wasteland.
Right.
And I actually think that while there's truth in what you're saying, I feel like Max's evolution would have been better served by a more violent society of kids
Well,
that he had to
yes.
help curb through his own sort of reform ways.
I think in a much smaller, more focused, but also subtler way, his entire relationship with the feral child gets at all of these ideas better and more economically.
Right.
And that is a more dangerous, violent child.
Right.
This feels a little Toy Story 3, where it's like, it's the same theme as Toy Story 2, but we're just going to hit it harder and let it reach its natural conclusion rather than introducing a fully new idea.
Right.
And you have the same ending pretty much. Not to jump ahead, but Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome have the same ending where it's like one of the children narrating what their life was like for the
This is
years
true.
after Max left.
And then the Randy Newman song for Thunderdome comes in. You got a Thunderdome.
I love the opening song.
Yeah.
It rules
Yeah.
in this movie.
It is, dare I say, better than you can't throw yourself away. We can't
I
let
think
you
that's a
throw
great
yourself
song,
away.
and I'm going to fight you on that.
So bad.
It
It's
is-
so much better.
Griffin, it is absolutely insane.
It's
It's a great
it's a great
song.
song.
Utterly
I
vile
listen to
garbage.
it all the
I
time.
adore Randy Newman.
He's
I
a
own multiple
gentleman.
Randy Newman albums.
Yeah.
I like a lot of
a great
his
song.
Pixar songs. He literally got on stage, and I support the man. He should play on the Oscars every year for all I care. But he's literally just got on stage and was like, I just can't believe you throw yourself away, like 40
He
times. And I
should
was like,
write
what is
a
going on?
formal letter of apology to Mary Steenburgen for being nominated.
No, but
instead
that
of
was
her
not
at
the worst
Oscars.
song nominated.
She should have been nominated.
It
She
wasn't.
should have
Well,
won.
maybe it was.
She should have won.
That was the
No.
most egregious
The
snub all of
Breakthrough
last year.
song is that.
The
No
Breakthrough
offense to
song is-
Diane Warren, but
Yeah.
that was the worst.
No, offense to Diane Warren, who has
Yeah.
written the song 12 times for the Oscars
It's
before,
true.
is really phoning it in even harder than Randy
Yeah.
Newman does here. Randy Newman's song is truly
It's a
Very
perfect
good.
song. It's a perfect song.
It is. there's
I
at
listen to it
least-
all the time.
There's at least craftsmanship in the Diane Warren song, even if it's the same tired craftsmanship.
Can
that
I
she talked
recite
about
some
before.
lyrics for you? I can't let you.
I can't let you.
I can't let you.
I can't let you.
I can't let you throw yourself away.
Yeah, I remember. I seem to remember that.
It's a suicide
yeah.
prevention song for a sport.
Perfect.
Yeah, no. In the movie, it's fine. Like it's very
Great.
cute. Yeah.
One of my favorite sequences.
It's a great sequence. Yeah.
I think I was afraid they were going to nominate Ballad of a Lonesome Cowboy, which I think is the more traditionally Oscar baity song, but is the end credits song.
Yeah.
I was happy that they nominated the Forky song.
Or they could have nominated neither. Could have gone
Yeah,
for that.
they could have.
route.
They
Hard
could have just
disagree.
nominated
Hard disagree.
Glasgow from Wild Rose.
Yeah, that should have won. I agree with
like
you.
the best
agree
original
with
movie
you.
song.
What
Up
even
there was
won?
Shallow in Years. What one was the Elton John song?
Right.
Because
yeah.
and what sealed the deal
Right.
was
he
at
was
the
like,
Golden Globes
Oh,
being
Bernie
like,
never won a Globe.
we've
Yeah.
never won
yeah.
something together, and
Nah,
everyone in the
fuck.
audience was like, oh.
I was like,
I guess
all
he
right,
wins.
yeah, I guess I'll
Yeah.
do that one.
But
Yeah.
also, you have just won something together. That is why you
Now
were on
it's
stage at
happened.
the Golden Globes.
Right.
There's no need to.
we all
repeat
know
this all
Golden
over
Globes
again.
don't count. Those things are only
Golden
useful.
Globes are the caucuses of award season,
They
and we
really
need
are.
to
So true.
abolish
It's so
them.
true.
We need to abolish them.
Exactly.
So
They're
fucking
fucking
hard.
everything up.
Yeah.
Every year, we're always like, these don't matter, and every year we treat them as if they're life or death.
I know.
And just because like 40 people in Iowa show up to a gym
Right.
to run across the room and be like, Tom Steyer! And,
Bombshell.
Like, yeah, bombshell. Like,
These
this
10
is-
people.
This is why our democracy is fucked, and I think it starts with ending the Golden Globe.
We got to end the Golden Globes. That's the first thing we got to abolish.
Yes, let's.
I'm a
do it.
single issue voter, and my issue is abolish the Hollywood Foreign
We
Press
got to cancel the
Association.
millionaires and the billionaires, and of course, the Golden Globes.
Yeah. The foreign gossip
The
journalists.
SAGs can stay.
Yeah. I do like the whole captain thing. I do like this idea of like, even if the story has gotten distorted, of course, if we are to presume that Max has been going through these cycles many times off screen in between the films that we've seen, that eventually he would start to build a reputation.
Yeah.
You know, he would become a sort of mythic figure, the idea of this savior. I mean, because the painting on the wall is clearly him.
No, 100%.
Even if he was not an airplane pilot.
I do like the idea, though, that like by the time Fury Road comes around, again, everyone's just like, "Who's this guy?" Like that the world is just so splintered now.
Yeah.
That
I'm
every
not
little
saying he
bit-
would be infamous, but that there would be pockets of the world where people would be like, "I hear this is a guy who comes and saves people."
Well, there's something that, again, I'm just like, read this one really illuminating interview with George Miller that I've quoted at every time I've mentioned anything he said in this episode. But he talks about the dynamic between, and this is about the children, like the little lost kids. He's talking about the dynamic between knowledge and belief, and like the faith that they have is a direct sort of negative image of the lack of knowledge that they have. And so it's like all has to be balanced out to an equilibrium.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they need to have this sort of religious ideology they have around the mythology they have around the Mad Max character because they have so little hard knowledge about the world around them.
There has to be something to justify them getting out of dirt in the morning.
And so if you extrapolate that to an entire wasteland of both kids and adults who are all looking for something to believe in because they have so little concrete reason for hope, it would be so easy for, I mean, you see how the cult of personalities flourish, but it would be that much easier for an abstract figure to have, a place in everyone's hearts and minds.
Right. The adults tend to congregate around these power structures that build up very quickly around like titans and tyrants and demagogues and whatever. But these kids are into the abstract notion of we're not going to sign up for what anyone else is selling. We believe that there's someone out there who is setting a template for how we should follow.
It's because, like, in my understanding, they are the first generation. I mean, their parents were on that plane, which took off from a runway in the industrialized world. This is the first generation of people who know nothing besides the wasteland.
But that's what I always like about Mad Max is that it's always kind of like the near-ish future.
Yeah.
You know, like they never let it advance.
Right.
But the idea that you couldn't find that sort of seed of hope that could excite that sort of meaningful change in people who had lived to see the fall of man and had been like that jaded by everything that came from it. You needed people who were born into this and were like, why not hope? Like, why not?
Right.
Even if it's a hope to go backwards and like to backwards to the future of Tomorrowland.
Because their life hasn't been such a dramatic set of diminishing returns, having to watch a society collapse. They're just being handed a pile of shit and going, couldn't we have something better than this?
Yeah.
Explain to me why it's not possible to build something better here.
Yeah.
I like the kids. I do. I like them.
I just don't like, and I say this as a new father, I just don't know if I like kids in movies anyway. When is a movie better for having children?
Bicycle Thieves.
Okay, that's one movie.
Yeah, there's good movies with kids, obviously.
No, there's one movie that's good with kids.
There are good movies with kids, but often, yes. I'm sort of
they just
taking
bring
or leave
all their
it on the
sticky
kids.
hands in, and they want to touch
You can't
things.
tell that their hands are
no,
sticky.
you can. You can see the viscous, the jelly
versus-
hands, man.
Yeah.
And they're just like, and they have these voices that are kind of high pitched. They all want things. They all want candy and stuff.
Or like, I got some tough spoilers for the next couple of years of your life.
But I do feel like narratively, kids have certain demands that can sink a lot of movies. That and we always see it in the third part of trilogies. It feels like the Ewoks are sort of the kid equivalents who soften things up, tenderize the main characters so they can have that sort of change.
Yeah.
And I feel like it backfires a lot because kids are really hard to wrangle in these cases.
They just, I don't hate it, but like the movie does kind of slow down. And I'm just sort of like, I'm just kind of staring into space for some of these scenes.
This is the only Mad Max movie that suddenly has like a 30 to 40 minute stretch without any action sequences.
I know, but
it's not just that they're
I don't
kids.
like
it makes,
that.
I don't either.
I like the
I don't
action
either.
sequences, right?
But I don't think that's inextricably tied to the kids thing. I think that's more tied to...
Exactly, but that's the problem.
But
that to me
but
is
then
the problem.
you associate the two things.
Exactly, right.
Because they are happening.
I mean,
in the
Mad
same
Max
movie.
is very
Right.
D&D
Yeah.
in that it's sort of like you go from like sort of situation to situation.
New cast of characters,
yeah,
new mission,
and you
new
like wander
environment.
in. What's the deal here?
Right.
Okay, and this is just the least interesting of the locations in all of the Mad Max.
Wait,
movies,
what's a good
basically.
movie about like a roving gang of kids? Not just like one kid, like to think of a very recent example, Minari, which we saw at Sundance, as one
Great
kid,
kid.
amazing kid, incredible film.
Roving
What
gang.
about like a roving gang of kids with a majority of kids?
Gummo.
Gummo. Okay. We got Gummo.
Gang of kids. Bugsy Malone.
Yeah, I feel like this should be my question.
Yeah,
And I can't
exactly.
think of one.
Because when you were a kid, you stand kid actors because you were sort of like that could be me,
Well,
right?
I simultaneously stand and reviled them for taking the jobs that I thought I deserved without auditioning.
Sure.
I was constantly waiting for like someone to notice me on a street corner sucking a lollipop and be like, "Kid, you got it.
Hey, little girl,
you got
is
what
your
it
daddy
takes."
home?
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah, I did, but now I'm trying to think. I mean, we talked about this recently. I forget if it was on mic or off mic with Emily Ishida, Mother Blankies, Little Rascals movie.
Yeah, Little Rascals, right?
I mean, they exist. My brain immediately goes to Little Giants. Anything with the word little in the
Right,
title.
but that's when you get like that's
I believe they
teams.
came out the same year, but yes, yeah.
Teams is different than gangs, I feel like. Like, if we're talking about, like, sports league movies,
Yeah.
I'm a huge D2 fan. I'm a big heavyweights fan.
Yeah,
But I
I
feel
liked
like the-
D2 a lot.
D2 is really
I mean,
good.
despite the fact that it is slanderous towards Iceland, it is it like paints everyone who lives there as evil cretins. They don't even have.
they totally just span a globe and were like, who are the villains? Iceland.
But they like Rocky IV,
Right,
Iceland.
right,
and,
right.
like,
They
Iceland
really
is the
do.
loveliest place on earth. They
Yeah,
don't
I know.
really play
There's
hockey
such
that
I
much.
forgot that Iceland was the villain. I guess they were just like, Russia is tired. It's the 90s
Right.
now. We need new sort of, northern European
I don't think there's
villains.
a single Icelandic hockey player in the NHL.
No,
Anyway,
it's not a big country.
Well,
But-
they say Iceland's very nice.
and Greenland is
rather
very mean.
cold.
it's that
They get them
Iceland
wrong.
is more green and Greenland is
Right,
more
but
outside.
their Little Giants, I think, is more weighted towards the kids and the dynamics between them, and they're also younger.
Yeah.
Whereas Mighty Ducks, soon to be rebooted
Mm-hmm.
with Emilio Estevez exhumed and Lauren Graham, is more about like it's more of a way back. You got the kids, but really
Sure.
it's about the coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what's another one I really like? Big Green.
Sure.
The big green.
The
big
redheaded kid whose name I
green.
never know.
Bacall. Or the
Lauren
larger
Bacall?
kid. Lauren Bacall. You don't remember Lauren Bacall plays the goat in the Big Green?
yeah.
I
was the 90s for
yes,
him.
yes.
Dark time
No,
for
I
him.
know which kid you're talking about. And now I'm forgetting his name.
I feel like he could have been a Judd Apatow superstar if he had come along just a couple years later.
Well, Judd Apatow does heavyweights, and it feels like
That's-
that
that's
kid
the
just
Venn
missed.
diagram, right,
Yeah. Anyway. This section of the movie's not that much fun to talk about.
No,
I mean,
and they
we're
kind of just
proving the
world build
point here.
for you. They tell
Yeah.
you about the flight captain, who they think he is, and like, I don't know, their whole story.
And it's a lot of
Man,
them
come
getting
on.
ready,
Yeah,
them
well,
getting closer.
This is very bad.
It is.
And
Well,
yeah, I don't like seeing Max really get close with
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
holds one of them during the presentation.
Yeah.
Well, technically,
like-
this is kind of a paradise lost. In
Yeah, that's the
that
thing.
They've
Don't leave.
water. They've water.
It's all
Yeah.
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
They have like vegetation. They might even be able to hunt animals. I don't know.
That's a good point. It feels like it's one thing if this is where Max ends up at the end of a film.
Right, but he shows up
he
and they're
can't
like,
say
"We
that.
want to leave," and he's like, "Don't leave." And I'm just like, "Yeah, Max is right. Don't."
Yeah.
But kids don't
This
know.
gave me an Ewok vibe.
Yes, it's
Yes,
very
it's very
Ewok, and
Ewok.
it's a couple years post Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And you are right that like it's like the Ewoks. It's the they exist to soften up our characters. We don't really need softened up.
I like how Max teaches lessons by shooting a gun.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that's fine.
He's disciplining them
Yes.
and he's teaching them important life lessons.
It's a cool school.
What did you guys think about the moment when one of the kids says he's got word stuff from his ass to his mouth? I like that.
We
part.
haven't discussed
was a
that
good
line
part.
yet. Yeah.
That was
I
a
thought
very
that was a
good
real
part.
pick me up.
Two things I'd like to bring up just because I think we haven't discussed them yet in this episode. One, the kids have a little bit of an Ewok-y vibe. And two, there is that line where the kid says, you got words from ass to your mouth.
Word stuff.
All right.
Goth kid, great. Design, he's cool.
So then Savannah, one of the kids, and a bunch of other kids leave.
She's really good.
She's kind of leader
She's
kid.
good.
She's very
Yeah,
good.
they have a little
Yeah.
tantrum.
And one of them gets stuck in a sinkhole, so Max has to go fucking get him, and then we have to have our final action
They don't
sequence.
save that one.
No, that one's gone. That one goes down the sinkhole.
Another life lesson. Which
Avoid
actually
sinkholes.
comes up all the time in cartoons. Where like stay away from quicksand.
Sometimes kids sink.
That would be such a bad way to go.
Oh boy.
Just slowly suffocating
truly
under.
Can you
A
imagine
nightmare.
just getting sucked into quicksand, never getting to tell Ray the thing you want to tell her?
That you're
yeah,
also.
right.
I'm force sensitive.
I don't really know how you think about the Force, but just sort of like a kind of a mental vibe recently.
Ray, also, I want to make sure you understand that Palpatine's actually a clone of
Palpatine's a clone, and Exegol, Sith cultists built those ships.
Don't worry about it. You'll learn about it on a Star Wars tweet.
And if you're gonna kiss Kylo, I get it. It's more of a platonic respect thing than a sexual thing.
Also, Ray, I strongly recommend that you download the Fortnite DLC.
Oh, we can thread the needle between, or not thread the needle. That's probably not the right term here. We can connect the dots between Star Wars and Mad
Max.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
On the Wikipedia page for Mad Max Thunderdome, which is, of course, my second resource for information after I've exhausted the IMDb trivia page.
But of course.
It says at the end that friend of the pod, Chris Weitz,
Oh, yes.
is cited as having Mad Max Thunderdome and not any other Mad Max, specifically this film, as an inspiration for
He
him.
cited this as one of his major influences. This one.
That's fair.
He couldn't have made About a Boy without it.
Shout out Chris Weitz.
No, he was making in 2014 a show that never got off the ground that had something to do with post-apocalyptic children that would have reversed the curse, I am sure, about entertainment properties based around roving gangs of kids. But he is the one filmmaker cited as being inspired by this movie.
Well,
I'd love to talk to Chris about it.
I thought about DMing him last night, and then I just clicked a link, and it like has at length his thoughts about why he mentioned that, and I was like, well, I guess that's what he had to say.
you know what? I'm going to say it right here. At this moment, let's cut to an audio clip of Chris Weitz
Sure.
telling us
Let's just do it.
some of his thoughts on Beyond Thunderdome.
Hi, guys. So I'm going to be quick because I might be interrupted by a child at any moment. Also, I thought that my message for the 5th anniversary thing was probably too long and lugubrious, so I'm going to try to keep this short. So it was probably some bullshit I was saying while I was on a book tour, trying to get people interested in this series of books that I was writing, which ironically enough was about a virus that killed off everybody except young people. Anyway, that was a waste of 3 years of my life. But and everything I can say about Beyond Thunderdome has actually been superseded by Fury Road, which is a much better movie, but also brings up some of the things I liked about Beyond Thunderdome. So here they are quickly. One of them, in terms of movie making, is the importance of subsidiary characters. Right, each person has his own kind of particular kind of swagger or attitude to the world. I think another thing would be that I'm really interested in temporary cities or cities that are built up from nothing. And that doesn't not reflect in any movies that I've made really, but it is sort of reflecting what I'm interested in my life, like Burning Man, for instance, which is sort of a big part of my life where I met my wife. Is influenced by Mad Max to a great extent. In fact, it's in some kind of slightly overblown ways. Like, for instance, there is a Thunderdome there where people actually do fight, and they don't kill each other, but they kind of generally manage to break somebody's arm or rupture testicles or things like that. And I think but the most important thing is probably in terms of the stuff that I write, which is that I think that, Bartertown has its own logic to it, its own kind of conventions and culture and modes of power that explain why things are going on. And as I find myself writing, especially some of these Disney things, actually, weirdly, like, Cinderella or... what else am I working on? Anyway, I start to think about, like, what is the social economy? What is the cultural economy of this place? How does it work? What's the political economy of a movie, of the culture in a movie? And I think that that's something that's incredibly well realized, although not overly explained in George Miller's movies, and that's pretty great. Another thing I think they always do really well is to tailor the geography of things to the necessities of the plot without it being too obvious. A lot of the Mad Max movies are kind of there and back again, or in a straight line, or looping around from one place to another, and the places are exactly the way that they need to be to make the hero do the things that he needs to do, or she needs to do. I think that's about it for now. Thank you guys. In under 3 minutes. Hooray. Bye-bye.
And hey, if he didn't weigh in, that's okay. We still like him.
We still like him.
Right, if he was busy or something.
But hopefully,
Yes.
you just heard him talk about the influence this movie had on him.
I did pretty good as an interviewer, right?
I think.
And of course, he mentioned that he's going to come on and do on the Patreon a live commentary for About a Boy, a masterpiece.
Such a good movie.
Yeah. I continue to think of my life in 30-minute units of time.
Yeah.
No Man is an Island.
That's a big panic attack movie.
Rachel
for me.
Weisz.
That's a good Warren Beatty movie for me because it's got the right amount of sadness to it too. It doesn't feel like hollow placation. You know,
Shake your ass.
Watch yourself.
Show me what you're working with. Mystical.
Yes,
That's
correct.
a mystical joint. Yes. All right. So come on. The final sequence is a big train,
They get this thing on track.
which is really cool. It has some Paddington 2 energy.
It does, but the difference between
And Master, I like seeing Master in this new light, you know, where
Yes.
he's more of a befuddled professor type.
But there's
little
one
gentleman.
key. There's one key difference, and only one that I can think of between the third act of Beyond Thunderdome and Paddington 2, which is that everything that happens in the third act of Paddington 2 is brilliantly set up in the first act of Paddington 2.
No, I know.
Whereas in the third act of Beyond Thunderdome, my big problem with it is just it feels like we have sort of shifted rails to another movie entirely.
It is
and
funny
it
that they're
never
just like,
really-
yeah, there's a train.
Yeah. And it's just like, I want to be on board with this action sequence, but
The
it's
action
hard to
sequence
sort of get.
rules.
It is great. The
Yeah.
choreography of it is great. I
Yeah.
love the grace note. And I do want to talk about like the 80s, back when movies, you know, to just think about the good old days, like back when movies like this actually took their time and had moments for like expressions of humanity. That wonderful scene where he's standing outside and he's helping the kids play the record player, and it's the lesson recorded, the French lesson, and it sort of blows their minds, expands their worlds. This idea of other languages, it's great. It's the kind of thing that would be never even conceived of in a movie that was made today, a blockbuster of this kind, written in a writer's room and so on. But it's just like, what movie are we in at this point? It's just all over the place.
There are kind of three separate movies in this, and they kind of go from one to the other.
Right.
They don't feel disconnected, but they're also not. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Pretty cool.
the other Mad Max films are so much on the road.
Yeah.
And the first 2/3 of this movie has almost no vehicular shit.
It's true.
Right? I mean, so like first act is pretty much the Thunderdome world building.
No, you're right.
the
You're right.
fight.
It is, and it is lacking a little bit. You do like a bit of high speed.
Which, from the moment Jedediah takes his vehicle, that's pretty much
Sets
out
off
of
the
the
table.
equation, right? Then Act 2 is Max learns to care again, which is foot off the gas for too long.
Yeah.
And then Act 3 is here's the Mad Max vehicle chase that you wanted.
Right. Only this time.
It's on track.
And I do feel like that shot of the train going straight at the camera is like the Mad Max shot that everyone thinks of.
Now,
all
was
the
it just
time.
me, or did you feel like the train was going to come through?
Yeah,
the
I
screen?
jumped off my couch.
And
It was terrifying.
It was bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. And I like that Auntie gets a sort of nice ending note, versus the other Mad Max
Grudging
villains.
respect.
Exactly.
Well, I wanted to say, I feel like Master Blaster is a totally different character when he's got his suit on.
Yeah.
Even just the way he's like carrying himself. I don't know. He was like a master of a pig poop factory, and now he's all like polished looking. I just found that weird.
You know, it's like that thing where like sometimes like old people who've been married for decades and then one of them dies and the other one's like, fuck, I got to figure out a new personality now, you know?
Sure.
They were
Okay.
a unit. They were like so inextricably tied that like he cannot be the same guy
I mean
without
this
his big body.
semi-sincerely, but
Yeah.
do you think that there's kind of a resonance with Master Blaster between Miller and his producing partner?
Oh, you
And
know,
then, like-
I mean, I think possibly. I think that's part of, I mean, because there is the moment where these two characters who at presentation just feel like another element of like chaotic Mad Max world building. The moment that Blaster's the bigger one, Master's the smaller one, right? Blaster is unmasked and everyone sees his vulnerability and Master jumps into the Thunderdome is sort of like the Rancor Keeper.
Right.
Where it's like, this isn't just like a survival thing. Like, I care about
Right.
this person. I protect this person. I am emotionally tied to this person. We are inextricably connected. I wouldn't be surprised if, because Miller always talks about that. He was like, they were very much films that were made by the two of us. The fact that I have the director credit and he does not is kind of extraneous from the reality of how we work.
But also, what better metaphor or visual expression for the relationship between a director and a producer than a tiny person riding a much bigger person and controlling them? I don't know.
And he has to pick himself off the floor, put on a little suit, get in a helicopter, figure out who he is, get in a little plane.
And then, I don't know. And then,
but like, this is kind of, I guess, the last thing I want to try to make sure we talk about before we get on the box office game and what have you, is I do think the Mad Max films are such an interesting case study in different ways that you can build a franchise. Whereas I think like the thought of a franchise has become so binary now. It is so much, most people trying to follow the exact same model. But you saying Ehrlich that like that thing, like the scene of him playing the French record for the children is something that would never come out of a writer's room. But I also get so bummed out when post Rise of Skywalker, I saw so many people say like, well, the problem is that they didn't strategize and blueprint out the entire trilogy before they started filming the first one, which I don't necessarily think is the right approach. But now because Marvel has done that, and to be fair, that's an ever-evolving thing. It's not like Kevin Feige had 22 fucking scripts written out. You see those movies adjusting on the fly.
He knew in advance exactly how much money all of those films were going to make in China and what characters were going to be popular.
Exactly. Like he's like fucking like changing the levels constantly in the edit based on what's working and what isn't.
Rian Johnson says time and time again when he was writing and directing far and away, I think you can universally agree on without any rancor or dissension whatsoever, the best film in that trilogy. He was really on his own with no guidance from the greater Lucasfilm system.
Philosophically, I like the fact that Kathy Kennedy was like, our approach is not Marvel. Our approach is hire the right person, let them tell the story they want to tell.
But then they hired the wrong person.
They hired the wrong person twice. And then the other problem was, I think that she was so beholden to this like every other year thing, which is just not enough time to be able to like lick your finger, stick it up to the air, and figure out how the public's responded to the thing, rather than reacting sort of based solely on immediate fear. There's not enough time for the response to settle. But I also just think that sort of writer's room mentality that like a film franchise has to be seen as like a season of television. And you look at the Mad Max movies and they're all kind of like the same variations on the same story told over and over again with one character who's not going through conventional growth. No. And it is just every time like changing the world around him to some degree, making it bigger,
even in this, even though he wins, the kids kind of win him over and he helps him out, and then they go find like ruined Sydney and they're going to live in it or whatever. He then departs. Like that, the classic Max, he's then like, all right, I'm going to wander.
It's like the Trip movies, you know? They go to a different city somewhere, they eat their way through it, and then they go their separate ways, and they bring the same problems to the next iteration.
There's a cyclical nature to it, and then there are variations every time, and it's interesting to see how they build the things that are standard to the franchise, interesting to see which things they remove or add. But I just think, like, not everything needs to be a saga in the way that I think people are conditioned now to believe they need to be. And in a way that bums me out, where people have to like act like the whole time we had this plan and this was the big story we're telling.
Sure.
Mad Max can just kind of be this thing where like you can watch any one of these four movies and they work as a movie on their own as a complete meal.
It's really symptomatic, I think, of like Reddit culture right now, and the idea of I mean, Westworld 2, season 2 will always be the nadir of that for me, and writing for the mystery of it all and for the breadcrumbs and the clues. But this idea of you see it with the Pixar unifying theory and all that shit, which may have predated the sort of current Reddit boom of people talking about movies this way, but it is everything is sort of a puzzle to solve, and not a story to enjoy. But there are, and I'm very guilty over the years in my own writing in particular, talking about being a little sanguine about the way that these sort of larger scale movies used to be, and the grace with which they were told. But watching something like this, even at its most mediocre moments, there's such beauty in the blue of the sky in this movie is so, there's like deep cerulean shade that is just like completely arresting. Even when you're bored by anything else, your eyes can sort of wander through that. There are those quiet moments. The sound design, I mean, there's so many textural things about this movie that would be plastic in a modern conception of this. And also, and just to lay some controversy in the ground for your forthcoming Fury Road episode, which I don't know if you've recorded yet, but one thing I think this movie does or does not do that Fury Road does too much for me is it actually is at peace with the pace of which the action flows and doesn't speed ramp it
No,
to Hell and Back,
I like this way
which like 70% of Fury Road is framed ahead, and
like
it's a little irritating to me.
That's that Chuck Jones energy. But I do think, yes, I mean, you don't find those smaller moments. You don't find that sort of peace and tone and air to a film if you are so concerned with the sort of franchise building of it, about setting up the next film and paying off the things from the last film. And these movies are so much closer to like Charlie Chaplin movies, where it's like half of those films he's ostensibly playing the same character, but he is not bothering himself with having to go like, so is this before or after he makes the blind woman think that he's a rich man? Like, none of that matters. There is a growth to this character across 4 films because he's gotten older, but also it's built in a way where then a different actor can take over the 4th one and it doesn't disrupt the apple cart. Yeah. And he's not doing an impression, but he's also not doing something totally different.
But you wouldn't think that was true.
You wouldn't think
you know
it was
what I mean?
true.
Like when Fury was coming out, it's not like I was like, they need Gibson.
Yeah.
I was more kind of like, you know, isn't that in the past? Like, why does he need to do more Mad Max?
In that
Like,
same interview I've been citing that Ann Bilson did, he says some kind of, and I don't hold this against him, listen, it was a different world back then, but he says some rather unenlightened things by modern standards about when she asked if he could ever imagine a Mad Max movie that was really led by a woman and what like the female role is in this kind of story. And he sort of poo-poos the idea that it makes sense that you can put a round hole in a square peg there, and obviously came around to that in a big way. But it's really interesting just to chart that progression, to see how just sitting on that idea and drinking in the world for 20 some odd years, 30 years at that point, would have changed his mind.
Yeah, it's a benefit to the fact that, I mean, you know, there were earlier attempts where he wanted the film to get made and it didn't work out, and that was to his benefit, but also the fact that he didn't immediately go, well, I need a 4th one. I think this film, you know, disappointed a little bit at the box office only in relation to the budget was so much bigger than 2
Yeah, but it's
and
still,
1. But
you
it
know,
still was a good
made money.
performer, and Mel Gibson only got bigger. And you have to imagine if 3 years later, after Lethal Weapon 2 or whatever, he had said, I have a Mad Max 4 script, they'd go, right away, anything you want. We want to keep Mel in-house.
Right.
But he didn't. He grew as a person. He explored other things. He came back to it when the time was right. And he also came back to it with a very non-literal mind towards how to continue a franchise. Because it's just like, this is just sort of a continuum. This is a world. It's a story dynamic.
It's kind of a Bond logic in that sense, where it's just like, you know, you have the circumstances that you need. It doesn't really need to.
But now Bond has fallen prey to every movie has to explain why the past movies were connected to everything else.
By the time this episode comes out, we will know if they have rectified the damage done by Spectre.
We'll know whether or not he had enough time to die.
But I do, but you know, just to balance out the cost of this movie, George Miller does get 5 cents every time someone mentions the word Thunderdome in any context.
Yeah, he's getting rich off this.
So he's doing fine.
Let's play the box office game.
I just want to very quickly say,
Oh
and I've
my
said
God.
this before, the other approach to franchising that I love, that I wish someone would steal today, is the original Planet of the Apes, where every movie has a different lead character, and that's the way that they grow, rather than putting the same character through the same narrative trials over and over again.
got you.
The box office game.
Let's play the box office game. July 12th, 1985. Number 1 movie at the box office.
Beyond Thunderdome?
No, it was number 2.
Ooh.
Number 1 is, I have to imagine, one of the biggest movies of the year. Very big, enduring hit.
Of 1985.
Yes, number 1, the number 1 film of 1985.
The number 1 film.
Temple of Doom?
No.
Is that 1985, or am I way off?
I don't know. It wasn't 1985, so I can't remember. I think it's 84.
But is it a Spielberg?
No.
Interesting.
It is 84.
It is 84.
Temple of Doom.
Is it a franchise film at all?
It launches a 3-part series.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Nope.
Because that's
I think that's
84?
84. Yeah, that is number 15 at the box office, having done
Still
very
playing.
well.
Wow. Okay. So it launches a little franchise.
Yeah, a little. You know, it has 2 sequels.
It has.
And I suppose people occasionally have floated more, but it's never come to pass.
It's never come to pass. Ben, you look like you're burning.
We've never discussed it, but it's
a
highly
major-
likely that we will.
It's a major like cultural sort of property.
3 movies.
3 movies and they're major cultural properties. And tell me about the movie
Back to
star
the Future.
situation in this. Of course. What a dummy I am.
Sure. What a dummy you are.
What a dummy I am.
Number 1, Back to the Future. 2 weeks in, it's made $32 million, but on its way to 212.
Yeah, humongous fucking movie.
Humongous movie. Number 2 is Thunderdome, which opens to 10. Pretty good.
Good.
You
Not
know,
Thunderdome.
and tops out at 36.
Yeah.
It's like triple its budget.
Yeah.
It did fine.
It did fine.
It just didn't do that kind of Mad Max, like most profitable
That's the thing.
small
The other
budget
two
movie
were
ever kind of
notorious
thing.
for how much fucking profit.
I think it also was not as big a hit in Australia as the other one.
Yes.
You know.
The Thunderdome should have been left standing as like a children's playground.
Yeah, sure. Kids love geodesic things.
Yeah.
Remember when we were kids? Like everything was
Anything,
fucking
you
geodesic.
slap geodesic on anything, and I'm just
All
like,
right.
But
give
like
me
the
it.
Popeye town in Malta, do you know this? That the Popeye
Yeah.
set is still standing and you can just go visit it? And
It's in Malta.
Malta.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I was gonna say, the last time I was here, the Matrix 4 news broke in the middle of this episode,
Oh.
and I thought that I had fingers crossed that
Popeye 2 would
it was
get
gonna
announced.
it was gonna be Brewster McCloud 2. It was gonna be announced in the middle of
boy.
this.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Robert Altman back to
that would
direct.
be fuck.
Number 3.
Big
I'm going to
story.
make you refresh deadline at the end of this
Hush.
episode.
Number 3 at the box office
Okay.
is how to define. It's sort of a sci-fi family comedy. Like sort of like a kind of like a movie you could watch at school, right? Like sort of.
Is it a Joe Dante movie?
No, it's
but
not.
that
Although
kind of energy?
I would have loved to have seen him make this movie. I feel like he'd make a better version of this movie. This movie was a big hit.
If this
It was
movie
an
was
Oscar
on
winner.
TV and a commercial came on, it'd be a hearing aid commercial.
Oh, Cocoon.
Well done. Good clue. Ron
Yeah.
Howard's Cocoon,
Spawns a sequel.
which does spawn a sequel. It does win an Oscar.
For visual effects and supporting acting.
Yeah, 2 Oscars, right.
Yeah.
But Don Amici and
Kind of
Best
a
visual
weird win in
effects.
my mind. I don't think he's the best performance in that movie
no,
by
it's
any
a very
stretch.
weird win. And of
It-
course, also notoriously got a DGA nomination. It was
Yeah.
one of those it was weird.
That movie does not hold up great.
Great score, though.
Score
Lovely
slaps.
James Horner
Listen
score.
to it all the
And
time.
if you think about it, they kind of are just like big egg people.
yes.
Sure.
Which is cool. I love
You
that.
don't even have to think that hard. It's pretty much that is what is going on.
Now,
Big egg
number
energy.
4 at the box office is the second most successful film of 1985.
Oh.
It's a sequel.
Mm.
It's an action film.
First Blood? Rambo 2 First Blood?
Rambo, First Blood Part 2.
Right.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, sorry.
In which they were like, let's take this like pretty sensitive, like dark thriller,
Yeah.
and just turn it into a movie where Stallone just like pumps people full of bullets,
Right, 'cause it's first-
while so shirtless.
It's First Blood, then Rambo First Blood Part 2, and then
Rambo
it's
3.
Rambo 3.
Yes, we've
and
been
then,
over this.
And then Rambo, and then John Rambo.
I believe that's right. I can't
Weird.
remember the 5th one, but yeah.
I
exactly.
think they're called Rambo
Yeah,
and then
yes,
John Rambo.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Have you seen Rambo First Blood Part 2?
Sure. Yeah. I would watch it on TV. It
has
when
a
I was
great
homesick
ending.
from school, right next to Thunderdome.
No, it's called the last one's called Rambo Last Blood, isn't it?
I don't.
Whatever.
Yes, I
It
think
must
you're
be,
right.
though.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right, number 5 is it's a Western. It's a good movie. Good movie from a great director. Relatively early in his directing career.
Is Walter Hill?
No. I guess it's not that. It's like 10 years into his directing career. He's just had a long directing.
It's a Western.
Started-
It's not Silverado?
No.
But am I close? Is it that kind of thing?
No.
Not at all?
Not really.
Not close
This
at
is
all.
more of like a slightly dark, revisionisty Western, master of the genre.
So he's a master of Westerns. He does
would say.
he does a lot of Westerns?
He's done several.
It's not Cuss. It's
Oh,
not
A
the
Million
Cuss.
Ways to Die in the West?
No.
You said master of the genre, though.
Yeah, that's how I got there.
Ben's not going to know it. I like this movie.
You like this movie.
Yeah. I like a lot of movies this guy made.
You like a lot of movies this guy made, you
I did.
say.
I do.
Okay, revisionist early in the career.
But it's like early, but like later in.
it's not a Clint.
It is a Clint.
It is a Clint.
Horses are involved.
It's a Pale Rider. There we go.
It's a good one. Have you seen that one?
I've not seen it.
He's a preacher.
Yeah.
It's cool. But it's just one of those very like classic stripped down
Sure.
Clint sort of slightly neo-westerns Unforgiven, where like for some reason, even though they would do okay, and I think critics would kind of say like, yeah, good job. Like
Yeah.
there just wasn't that like swell of like, here it is. He's made his like Western, the like definitive Western.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Sure.
Do they in this film railroad him?
Um,
Or is it the other
I
Clint
would say
narrative,
it's more
which is,
that there's a mining.
guilty, lock
It's
me
like
up.
well, it's like there's like a sweet town,
Sure.
a little town, and greedy miners are trying to like take it over. and he like protects them.
Sounds like maybe they're trying to.
They are kind of
railroad
trying to
him.
railroad.
Well, they're trying to mine cart him.
Well,
on the, that's the
and
thing.
5 comedy.
Because you're right. Because like even in those, it's like Pale Rider, right? That's a little more of like these poor guys are trying to they're gonna get taken over by the greedy people, and like High Plains Drifter or something like that. It's more like where he's like, I'm a monster.
Right.
You shouldn't be near
When people
me.
are like, I like you, and he's like, no, I suck.
Fuck me. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And it's often he'll combine them.
Yes.
Like, if he's in the movie, even if he's trying to help people and they're like, well, thanks. And he's like, don't thank me. I suck. Goodbye.
Please punch me.
Pale Rider.
But you know what? It's funny that you mentioned Silverado because that is debuting at number 7. Not a hit.
Wow. Yeah.
You've also got Explorers with Ethan Hawke, right?
Which is a Joe Dante film.
Kids movie, yeah.
Interesting.
You also have St. Elmo's Fire, the sort of like, which is right. It's sort of the idea where they're just like, let's just do another Breakfast Club, but like it's not a sequel. It just kind of sort of has like a lot of the same cast,
and they're older. They
and
can
they're
go to
older
bars
now. But you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it is that weird sort of like spiritual sequel that has no actual relation.
That Brat Pack shit was strong.
Yes. And then also another movie we mentioned, some other movies. The Goonies is at number 10.
The Goonies.
Fletch at number 11.
Oh, my boy.
And Beverly Hills Cop number 15. Yeah,
There's this line in Fletch where he goes, he's like scammed his way into like a country club, and the guy takes his order and he goes, I'll have a steak sandwich and a steak sandwich.
Oh, you've never mentioned that.
It's good.
before.
Yeah,
Like
never-
to drink.
never
It's
comes
like
to
he's
eat.
gonna steak
He's gonna
sandwich,
eat.
but then
He's gonna get
getting
two. Yeah.
Not gonna get one blended.
Ehrlich, thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure.
What? Hey, what?
Thank you for going beyond the Thunderdome.
Thank you for going beyond the
Thank you
Thunderdome.
for going beyond.
I
Would
needed.
you
I
say
needed
that
a good
becoming a new
reason.
dad is going beyond the Thunderdome?
I feel like I've been in the Thunderdome for the
Right.
last 3 months, but I'm waiting to go beyond.
Is there anything you want to plug, like starting a family? or-
Starting a family, it's a
Sure.
great idea if you're looking for purpose and lost and have little money. And just but want to ensure that you will be panicked about everything beyond the power of your control for the rest of your time on this mortal coil. Starting a family,
Yeah.
recommended.
But does it take away from existential crisis? Or add
Compounds
to
them
it?
exponentially,
Compounds.
in fact. Yeah.
I've been feeling a little too chill recently.
Okay.
Like it's hard to thread the needle between wanting to care about something other than yourself,
Right.
but not wanting to care about something so much that it drives you into early insanity. And I've definitely fallen on the latter side of the fence. But
So that's starting a family.
Starting a
use
family.
Promo
Your
code
baby
Ehrlich.
is so beautiful and cute.
I love my bun.
He's a little
A
bun.
little bun, little
Yeah.
bun. Mr. Bun.
He's a little-
I wrote a song this morning that was called It Goes Fuck. It was really good. I write a song every morning for him, and it was like
You write a new one every morning?
Yeah, every morning at 6 a.m. when he wakes me up screaming in
Yeah.
my face, and it was like you thought like you just peed, but I thought it was a poop.
Oh.
But I thought it was a poop.
God,
I like the
baby,
refrain.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you just.
It goes
peed.
something-
Yeah,
something
I like
like
that a
that,
lot. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Plug in. Plug my baby.
Plug your baby.
Fighting in the war room.
Yeah, whatever. But it's also write reviews.
IndieWire.
IndieWire.
The
I love
continued
how
existence
I always
of
have to do his
humankind.
plugs for him.
Blank check with Griffin and David.
That's
Plugging
right.
blank check.
Right.
Thank you for joining the Five Timers Club. And thank all of you for listening.
Of course.
Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Andrew Gudo, Lee Montgomery for our theme song, Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for our artwork. Tune in next week for The Witches of Eastwick.
That's right.
Fantastic. And on...
That's right.
Oh, let's get those witches.
My name's Daryl Van Horn.
Never rub another man's witches. We're going to have fun. And go to patreon.com/blank check for some real nerdy shit. Or if you want to say some real nerdy shit, go to blankies.red.com. And as always, David, I want you to load up Deadline And let's hope that we're getting the Ehrlich good luck bump. Tell me what the top headline is on Deadline.
Super Tuesday Slugfest. Ex-DNC chair Donna Brazil tells RNC boss to, quote, go to hell. On Fox News, blames Russia. Ronna McDaniel calls Dems, quote, hopelessly divided. Why does Deadline write, like, cable news recaps?
Yeah, this fucking sucks.
I will say the first bit of movie news is, that's a podcast.
Bruce McCloud 2, Bruce McCloud 2, Bruce McCloud 2, Bruce McCloud 2, Beyond Thundercloud.
Business film. Exclusive. A Quiet Place 2's Andrew Foreman, Brad Fuller team with Chad Stahelski for Paramount Fast Car Vehicle. So they're going to make a car movie, I guess?
Okay, fuck everything.